In a life steeped in loyalty, the ultimate betrayal emerged. The only woman I had ever truly loved had made a mockery of our sacred vows, turning our shared dreams into dust. As the layers of deception began to unravel, a dark game of treachery revealed itself, mocking the very essence of trust we had built. Trust me, I don't know what the hell kind of game you and Samantha are playing, but I promise you this: I will get to the bottom of it, and I promise you heads will roll. This is my vow, my crusade against betrayal. Witness my journey into the heart of darkness. This is my story. Enjoy watching it. I looked at the stack of Excel worksheets that had just arrived in my inbox on the company's SharePoint site and realized I'd be working until at least 6:30 p.m. It occurs every month. Managers would wait until almost the last minute to send their reports, leaving it to me to compile the data. So much for getting home at a reasonable hour. So I called my wife Samantha to explain the issue and inform her that I would be working late again. "Mike, are you feeling the end-of-month blues again?" my wife asked. "That is me, by the way. Michael Jacobs." Samantha's question seemed snarky to me. "Yeah, this happens every freaking month. Some of these persons wait until the last second to send this information. It's almost as if they're waiting for something wonderful to happen. I apologize, I should be done around 6:30. As usual, not an issue." Samantha sighed and said, "I expected it to happen. Anyway, I've scheduled a table for 2 at Luigi's for 7 p.m. tonight. I felt you could use a break." Luigi's was a modest yet cozy Italian restaurant. We both enjoyed it. Sadie was close to an equally small dance club where we frequently shared a drink and a few slow dances before coming home to spend the evening in bed. I smiled at the prospect of a pleasant evening with my wonderful wife. "Yes, I can," I replied. "That was extremely thoughtful of you, dear." "So 7-ish? It's somewhere around 7. Samantha has officially confirmed Tata," she added before finishing the call. I found it weird that she did not end the chat with her customary warm affection. Then I realized her boss, Wilson Langley, the senior partner of the Hampstead Law Group, was definitely listening in. I took a quick look at the handset before returning it to the phone and getting back to work. I saved the spreadsheets, opened my master sheet, and launched the macro that would handle the most of the work. It used to take hours to sort through all of the data, but the macro that our IT. The boys did a wonderful job of gathering and organizing everything, and it only took a fraction of the time to finish refreshing my coffee. As the macro moved away, I sat back and reflected on the last few years of my life with Samantha. I was not always an office worker. In reality, until about 7 years ago, I was a federal agent working for a unique task force, a public-private partnership. I was one of the first agents assigned to the task force, reporting directly to the man at the top of the food chain, Bill Jackson, a family law attorney. I've worked with some of the greatest in the business. Frank Michaels. Oscar Warren was another. Sadly, Frank was slain in the line of duty. Oscar married the boss's daughter and is currently climbing the corporate ladder. The agency I worked for, formerly known as the Home Front Security Task Force, was formed with the sole objective of pursuing the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, also known as MASS. A female lawyer formed the organization after her spouse cheated on her. She was later let down by the legal system, so she set out to seek retribution. MMR was originally designed to punish straying husbands in awful ways. They proved to be an elusive group, and we spent the majority of our time in those days reacting to protect the spouses whose wives had set them up for punishment. We called those interventions, and they were typically effective. Remember that when I talk about punishment, it is usually pretty severe. More than one unsuspecting husband died as a result of the brutal treatment administered, and many more were permanently scarred, both physically and emotionally. The hospital at Fort Apache, the task force's headquarters, was full of guys who had been punished by EMS personnel. My stint on the task force made me jaded about relationships. After witnessing what so many men had endured at the hands of their wives, I avoided anything that resembled a serious relationship. So I traveled from intervention to intervention, doing my best to assist the individuals I was assigned to. My life changed dramatically after a bullet smashed my right femur a few inches above the knee during one of those interventions. After months of surgery and physical treatment, I was finally able to walk using a cane. But my career as a federal agent was over. Bill, being the type of man he is, told me directly that my time with the task force had come to an end and that there were no open positions for me to fill. I received a medal, a grateful nation's thanks, and a monthly disability check bill didn't seem like enough. So he called his contacts and secured me a position as an assistant operations director at IVAS and Security Services, or IAC. IAC is a nationwide firm that offers uniformed on-site security, private investigative services, and armed security for high-net-worth VIPs. One of the company's clients happens to be the task force that I previously served on. Better yet, the headquarters where I would work occurred to be in my hometown, where I own a 2-story home left to me by my grandparents. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to move or sell the place I had cheerfully accepted. Following a short chat with the company's president and founder, Jack Iverson, my task was straightforward in comparison to what I had previously done. Basically, I moved papers from one pile to another. I performed face-to-face visits with clients to resolve any concerns or do whatever Greg Hamilton, the CEO at the time, requested. That was when I first met Samantha Green. She worked as an office assistant for Hempstead at the time. She was charged with finding someone to offer protection for the company's downtown headquarters facility, when negotiations between our marketing team and Langley became bogged down. Greg sent me in to finish things up. It was my responsibility to either sign the contract or end the continual back and forth. Wilson Langley appeared pleased that IAC would send someone with my credentials to clarify matters. I knew what game he was playing. He wanted more services for a lower price, just like any savvy businessman. To that purpose, he spent weeks dragging our marketing team along by making modest changes to each given contract. I described our usual operating practices and stated that we were pleased to accommodate his company's needs. Nonetheless, our initial contract was the same one we used for all of our clients. If he had any unique needs or restrictions, he could always call my department, and we would make the necessary adjustments, as long as they were legal and reasonable. In other words, Fisher cut the bait. "Is that correct, Mr. Jacobs?" he asked, laughing. I shrugged my shoulders before responding. I replied, "That's one way of looking at it, Mr. Langley." "I admire your openness very much. You've got my business," the older man stated, offering his hand. "Have your staff provide me the greatest contract they can put together, and I will sign it. Thank you, Mr. Langley." I told him as we shook hands that we would put the contract together. Wilson Langley kept his word and signed. After that, he promoted Samantha to executive assistant. I was shocked when Samantha called later that week to tell me about her promotion. I asked her out to supper to celebrate, and she agreed. We are starting our relationship. I wasn't expecting anything to come of it, and I was surprised to hear that she wasn't turned off by my condition. A year later, Greg retired, and old guy Iverson appointed me to CEO of Slot. I knew Greg had been grooming me for the role, but I was startled at how quickly the shift occurred. It didn't take long for me to settle into my new role, and I knew the extra money would come in useful. That's when I decided to open a new bank account for my disability, as I no longer needed to use it for monthly costs. I intended to preserve it for my ultimate retirement. For whatever reason, I never referred to the account as Sam. We celebrated my promotion with supper at Luigi's on Friday, and I proposed marriage after Samantha accepted. She led me to meet her folks. I already knew her father, Jacob Green, was one of the state's wealthiest men, but I'd never met the man in person. He turned out to be one of the most condescending a-holes I'd ever met. He frowned at the walking stick in my left hand before reaching out his hand. As we shook hands, I could practically feel his dislike. "So Sam told me you were a federal agent who was shot in the line of duty." He grumbled after lighting a big cigar. "That is correct," I confirmed with a neutral tone. "Who were you working for?" "The Homefront Security Task Force," I responded. I noticed one eyebrow raise. "I've never heard of him." Jacob let out a growl. "What have you done for them?" "Scrub the shutters." His sneering arrogance truly annoyed me, but I understood exactly what he was aiming for. Sam had warned me that he might be crass and salty, so I decided to push it back down his mouth without telling him. "I'm not authorized to discuss anything I did. But I can tell you something. I killed them," I responded calmly. His brows immediately rose and his eyes widened. I grinned and continued, at least with the ones I didn't chuck in jail. He recovered before proceeding. However, I'm still going to insist on a prenup if you want to marry my daughter. No offense, but I want to be sure you aren't just sniffing around her trust fund. No offense taken, Mr. Green, I explained as we clasped hands. And I'm fine with a prenuptial agreement, so long as it's reasonable and fair. Good, but enough of this, Mr. Green. Crap, do you hear me? You marry my little girl. You can call me Pop if you want. All right, Pop. He laughed and summoned Sam to the parlor. Is everything okay? Samantha asked when she entered the room. I believe so, her father responded. You choose a terrific dude here. Someone with a backbone and balls to match is far superior to the last piece of crap you married. Sam had already told me about her first spouse, whom she met in college. She didn't tell me the entire tale, but she did reveal they were divorced. I certainly believe so. Sam spoke as she headed towards her father. So, are you two okay now? Yeah, we're all right? Mike? Absolutely, Pop. The elderly father grinned as he gazed up at his daughter. See, now, why don't you go help your mother prepare dinner? We'll go right along. Okay, Father? She responded by kissing him on the cheek after leaving the room. He stared at me. Tell me something, Mike. Seriously, did you actually mean what you said about killing people? Of course I told him, prompting blood to flow from his face. But they were all nasty guys who truly deserved it. Perhaps you could tell me about it one of these days, Jacob suggested. I would love to, Pop, but everything is classified. And I agreed to a non-disclosure agreement. He gave me a long look before nodding slowly. I can respect that, son, he finally said. The rest of our visit went smoothly after that. When Sam and I departed, her parents and I had grown closer. I guess the elderly man needed to know he could respect his prospective son-in-law. The wedding, conducted in a large historic church, was well attended. We flew to Hawaii for our honeymoon on Jacob's pay, and when we returned, Sam moved into my house after selling her condominium. Life went smoothly for us until a few months ago. My computer buzzed, jolting me back to reality. I noticed a dialog box informing me that the macro had finished its task. After finishing my executive summary, I reviewed the final product spot and double-checked the numbers to guarantee accuracy before saving and printing the package. I put the report in a binder, closed everything down, and set it on Jack's desk so he could view it first thing in the morning. If it had been someone else, I would have simply emailed it. But my employer is old school and prefers an actual printout that he can grasp in his hands. And I don't blame him for that. After showering and brushing my hair, I put on my suit jacket, grabbed my walking cane, and looked about before turning the lights off. Looking at my watch, I noticed it was 6:32 p.m. I thought I'd have plenty of time to get some flowers for Sam on the way to Luigi's. I got into my car and cranked on the stereo, letting the sounds of Thick as a Brick wash over me. Okay, so I enjoy classic Jethro Tull, Sue Me or My Father if you insisted. He's the one who got me into Tull as a kid. In fact, he took me to my first ever concert. Naturally, it was a complete concert. We had a terrific time, and I remember all the other kids thinking it was awesome that I had a father who liked rock music, and I didn't fight the point since they were correct. Even now, Dad and I often have a cigar while listening to classic Tull tunes. I arrived at the restaurant and saw it was 6:55 p.m., so I texted Sam to let her know I was there. Samantha had mentioned 7-ish, which meant anything between 655 and 715, and I didn't see her car in the parking lot. Hey was the only reaction I got. No emojis and no terms of endearment. Normally this would not concern me, but it did tonight. Samantha has been feeling cold and moody for the past few weeks. I constantly asked her what was bothering her, but she simply waved her hand and made an offhand statement. I hoped the flowers I bought would make her feel better, so I stepped out of the car, flowers in hand, and entered the restaurant. The woman at the door smiled as I entered, and her smile grew wider when she saw the flowers in my hand. Jacob had a 2-person party, I announced. Right this way, sir, the young woman replied as she took 2 menus. I followed her to a seat along the back wall and sat to examine the restaurant's interior, partially out of habit. She offered me a menu and poured a glass of water. Before departing, I sipped my water and glanced through the menu. I already knew what I wanted and was passing the time while waiting for my wife to arrive. The next 20 minutes appeared to pass agonizingly slowly. I noticed it was 7:20 and looked up to check if Sam had arrived, but she hadn't. Then I noticed him walking in my direction. His attire and demeanor indicated that he worked as a process server. I'd seen a lot of his type over the years. I also observed a manila envelope in his palm, which was an obvious giveaway. I thought he'd ignore me, but I knew he wouldn't. "Michael Jacobs," the man inquired as he approached my table. "Yes," I responded. "Can I please see some identification?" "Of sure," I informed him as I took out my wallet and showed him my driver's license. He handed me the envelope and snapped a photo with his phone. "You've been served, sir," he said. "Have a nice evening with that." He turned and went away. I watched him depart and then opened the envelope. I already knew what was inside and wasn't startled to see the paperwork labeled Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. I had done nothing to deserve this, yet it fit Samantha's attitude throughout the prior few weeks. She was divorcing me, citing adultery, which was an outright lie. I pulled my phone from my pocket and texted Sam, "WTF." I then heard a woman's voice as I read Samantha's petition. "Mr. Jacobs, I noticed a rather tiny blonde in a business suit standing at the table using the phone's video record app. I put it back in my pocket so that the camera lens could record the talk, which I expected would be uncomfortable." "It depends," I replied. "Who might you be?" The woman extended a hand. "Allison Cartwright of Hempstead Law Group." I began reaching for her hand but stopped as she made the following statement. "I am representing your wife." I lowered my hand, embarrassed, and stared at the paperwork in front of me. "May I please sit down? It is a free country. Help yourself." She took out a chair and sat facing me. A waiter approached, perhaps mistaking the woman across from me for a member of my two-person party. "Are you two ready to place an order?" The waitress, whose name tag read Cindy, inquired, holding a pen and pad. "No, I will not be staying much longer," I told Cindy. Allison glanced away and Cindy simply nodded, not expecting a reaction. Cindy responded, "Very well, sir. Please let me know if you change your mind." I waited until she left before gazing at Allison. Allison said, "My client requested that I collect the papers after you signed them. So your client, my soon-to-be ex-wife, requested that you collect the documents I had just received, expecting me to sign them without first reading them or consulting my own attorney. Have I got that correct?" "Yes, something like that," Allison responded quietly. "So tell your client she can eat my garbage and die," I hissed. "Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going home. Mr. Jacobs, you will hear from my attorney soon." "That will not be doable," Allison stated. "First and foremost, my client has obtained a restraining order against you, and you are not permitted to come within 500 feet of the marital home." "Really? And I assume she wants the house as well?" "Yes, she does, and I believe she's entitled to it. Did your client tell you that the house is in my name solely and has been since my grandparents gifted it to me long before we married? This means it is not community property." "No, she didn't," Allison explained, "but you believe she is entitled to it anyhow, after what you have done?" "Yes," Allison replied, removing an envelope from her purse. She tossed it on the table, and I glanced inside to find a stack of photographs. I was not expecting to see photographs of two people having sex. I knew I wasn't one of the people in the photos, and I felt she knew too. Allison wasn't finished, though. "You see, Mr. Jacobs, we have photographic evidence of your infidelity," she explained. "We also have videos. My client has instructed me to inform you that if you do not sign those papers, she would ensure that the images and videos they come from be sent to everyone. You know your boss, as well as your family and friends. That is extortion. I informed her of a felony in this state, and the fact that you participated in that conduct makes you an accessory to Samantha's crime." Allison smirked and shrugged her shoulders. "Extortion. That's simply another word for family law. Trust me, Mr. Jacobs, there's a lot more we can do for you," she quipped, seeing the expression on my face. Allison softened her tone. "My customer is not entirely unreasonable. However, she is willing to let you stay in the house for a few days to get what you need. I have been invited to accompany you. Isn't that absolutely magnificent of her?" I responded sarcastically. Allison recoiled at my remarks and tone, but did not say anything. I chose to keep it cool for the time being. I grabbed the packet of images and the divorce documents and stood up. "Follow me if you must." I hadn't ordered anything, so I gave the server the flowers and $1.20 for her trouble and stormed out of the restaurant as swiftly as my cane would allow. Even so, Allison struggled to keep up. I got into my car, opened the video app, and accelerated out of the parking lot, not caring whether Allison was following me. I arrived at the house and parked in front of the garage. I opened the garage door and noticed the empty space where Samantha typically parked. I took a big breath and examined the house. Then I remembered my time with the task force. I remembered how many times our suspecting husbands were ambushed in their own homes by mass operations who drugged, abused, and tormented them. "Is that what you have in store for me, Samantha?" I asked. "Not anyone in particular. So guess what isn't occurring today?" As Allison parked near the curb, I unlocked my glove box, took out my holstered 9mm semi-automatic pistol, checked to see if it was in the chamber, and connected it to my belt. I stepped out of my car and opened one of the front doors. I unlocked the door but did not open it fully. I put the keys back in my pocket. I drew the revolver from its holster. Allison's face turned white at the sight of my handgun. "It is all right. I have a concealed carry permit," I told her, "and I understand how to use it." "That's unnecessary, Mr. Jacobs," Allison stammered, her gaze fixed on the weapon. "I will decide what is essential or not. Ladies first, maintain your hands where I can see them at all times. And don't even consider reaching for anything. Give me a reason, and I'll ditch you so soon. You will die before you realize it. Understand?" "Yes, I understand," she said. I signaled for her to enter first, carrying the revolver. "Good! Go ahead, open the door. I will be close behind you." Allison tied the pistol and slipped up the stairs to the front door. I said, "Open it." She anxiously opened the door and entered the house. I trailed behind. I'm holding a pistol in my right hand and using my cane to steady myself with my left. My training kicked in as I swiftly shut off the security alarm and checked to make sure no one was inside. I signaled for Allison to stand in the middle of the room. "Toss your purse on the sofa." I placed an order. Allison obeyed, and I directed her to place her hands on her head and remain still. I nodded as she complied. "Remember what I said? If you follow my commands exactly, you'll make it out of here alive." I strolled gently around the ground floor, making sure no one else was present. I opened the basement door and turned on the lights. I looked around and no one was there. So I returned to the main room where Allison was standing upstairs. Now I've placed an order. Allison approached her handbag, but I stopped her. "Just leave it." She complied and went up the steps. After she had taken a few steps, I sat down in the stair lift, something I had installed after being discharged. As we carefully made our way to the second story, Allison gave me a glance. "In any case, what are you trying to find?" she inquired. "Just checking to make sure I didn't receive any unpleasant surprises from you or Samantha. Do you really believe we would take such action?" asked Allison. "A known occurrence in the past," I informed her. "Following your restaurant threat. I'm just exercising caution." When we reached the top of the stairs, I stood back up. "Remain in this place. Stay put." I said this prior to looking through the second-level rooms. After I was positive there was nobody else in the home, I steered Allison towards the master bedroom and put my weapon in its holster. "What is this?" I inquired, observing a sleeping bag and a bag of clothes on the bed. In an attempt to expedite the process, Samantha took the liberty of assembling some of your items. I went through both of the bags. No idea what to anticipate anymore. I was relieved that nothing had been tampered with any bugs added to my belongings. I walked to the closet and took out a couple more things. Subsequently, I shifted a few hanging objects to one side, unveiling my integrated fireproof safe. Making sure Allison couldn't see me, I opened the outer door and touched the black plate underneath. My fingerprints were confirmed by the scanner, and the inner door was not locked. I took off the $100 bill strap after noticing it. I reasoned that the $10,000 in the strap would tide me over for a while. During my visit, I took some important documents and turned on the home security system by flipping a switch located at the rear of the safe. Everything that occurred in the house would now be captured on camera and stored on a cloud server. Every movement and every word in every landline phone conversation. I was free to view and listen whenever I pleased, and I could keep an eye on everything in real time if I so desired. I had installed this system during my time in the task force, but I hadn't used it prior to getting married. I knew the system would function and gather the necessary evidence, even if technology had advanced since it was first built. Allison was waiting for me in the bedroom when I went back inside the safe and shut it. I filled the overnight bag with everything. Subsequently, I removed my wedding band and placed it on the dresser. "Are you prepared at this point?" asked Allison. Yes, I did tell her. "All right, if you would like, I can bring your clothes back down. You need your left hand, I know that." "I'm grateful," I said icily. After we went downstairs, I entered my house office. "Before I leave, I have a few things to take care of." "Here, pause," I informed her. I entered my workspace, my personal sanctuary. Samantha had her own office, therefore she hardly ever entered this room. I, however, was not going to take any chances. In case Samantha attempted to access my computer, I modified the primary boot-up password. I then put the external backup disk aside to carry with me after disconnecting it. I turned on my backup file destruction system in the closet by flipping the switch, similar to the system of video surveillance. Although it was installed during my time in the task force, it had been off for the previous 7 years. There would be nothing but ashes if someone broke in and attempted to grab any of my files. By the time the incendiary weapons had completed their work, I double-locked the office door after changing the security code, an action I hadn't taken in years. After glancing around one more time, I shut the door and returned to the front room, where Allison was already waiting for me. "All set now?" she inquired. "Come on, let's go," I stated bluntly. Before shutting it, I locked the front door and reset the alarm. Allison placed the clothes bag in my car's trunk and turned to face me. "Your joint account has been frozen, just so you know. Samantha has already consumed her fair part. Take quick action to sign the documents. I'm hoping to hear from your attorney shortly," says she. "Believe me, I have no idea what type of game you and Samantha are playing, but I can assure you that it is not this. I'll investigate it thoroughly, and heads will roll, I can assure you. We just wanted to let you know that you and your client are at war," I growled. As Allison processed what I had said, "You're now my enemies," her face went white. "The first blood was yours. Furthermore, I dislike losing arguments. I went downtown because I knew of a hotel where, even without a reservation, I could get an extended stay room for a fair price. Over the years, East has stayed at this motel numerous times. They were so generous as to provide us a good discount. I paid cash for a week's stay, thinking that by then I would be back at my own home. In addition, even though I suspected they were following me, I didn't want to make it any simpler for them to locate me." I handed the cashier a modest quantity of $100, and he seemed shocked, but said nothing, placing the bills in his cash register and giving me a key card. My bags were taken by a bellhop, who then escorted me to my 11th floor accommodation. Having finished putting everything away, I knew the hotel's kitchen was open until midnight, so I ordered dinner. I took out my phone and banned Samantha's number after that. I know a number of divorced men who had gotten into problems by answering calls and texting. My next course of action was to give my supervisor, Jack Iverson, a call and report the incident. Iverson responded, "Damn, son, that's cold, old man. I'll give Alice Hawkins a call and try to arrange for you to visit her first thing in the morning. When I'm through with her, I'll text you. Regards, manager, thank you for that." We hung up the phone and I told him. Family law attorney Alice Hawkins detests infidelity with a fervor. About half an hour later, I received a text from Jack verifying my 9:30 a.m. meeting with Alice. He also extended a complimentary offer to me for the company's private investigation services. I agreed and texted back to say thank you. Grabbing my laptop, I set it up and connected to the Wi-Fi network of the hotel. When I initially examined our joint account, Samantha had already taken out around 80% of it, but before that, it was frozen. Our combined savings account had virtually vanished, and our joint credit cards had been paid off and canceled. Luckily, the monthly expenses had already been settled in full. I went into my other bank's disability account and logged in. The fact that it was still available gave me relief. I felt relieved that I had kept that account from Samantha. Upon accessing my home security system, I discovered that 2 films had already been cloud stored. When I opened the first video, I could see Allison and Samantha entering the house. Samantha was joined by a well-groomed male. Interesting. Glancing at the timestamp, I thought to myself. It was not long after I departed that I realized this. How did that go then? Has he signed the documents? Once they were gathered inside the front room, Samantha inquired. "No," stated Allison. "I predicted he most likely wouldn't. He has 30 days legally to reply. You forgot to notify me that he would be armed, by the way. Armed? You know, like a gun? Indeed. Samantha, armed typically means that. Allison gave a caustic response. I've never felt such fear in my life. She said he was a government agent once. He was shot while performing his duty, Samantha gently informed her. He has that cane for that reason. I am aware that he possesses a concealed carry permit. Fantastic, remarked Allison. You had the opportunity to speak with me beforehand. Hold on. The man spoke out. Do you mean that he threatened you with a gun? Yes, Allison answered. He looked through the entire house, almost as though he thought someone would be stopping by. For whom did he work? Are you aware? Not precisely, no. Samantha informed her about a task force of some sort. However, he rarely discussed his work. I do know that he once admitted to killing people to my father. He did not toss in the towel. Task group. Interesting. With some consideration, Allison answered, I'll have to look into that. Fantastic. That is very impressive. An angry ex-fellow brandishing a gun. When he discovers the whole truth, what do you think he will do? Calm down. He will not act in any way, stated Allison. Indeed, he is furious. He has every right to be honest. He isn't stupid, though. Furthermore, he won't discover the complete truth. Samantha, one more thing. How come? Why didn't you inform me that this was his house before to your marriage? It didn't seem to matter to me, Samantha responded. Why? Why? Are you joking with me? In a divorce, technically, you have no claim to this location. However, I meant it when I declared that I deserve to have it. However, you've just made my work much more difficult. Allison spit. Does that imply that we can now set him up? The man inquired. I am carrying a whole thumb drive filled with pictures and videos. I can install it on his PC in less than a second. He'll be dead to rights by then. Before he realizes what hit him, he'll be in jail. Put that away now. Allison gave an order. We haven't yet reached that point. Additionally, he closed the door to his office and took his backup drive with him when he left. I believe he also modified the lock's security code. Thus, the man inquired, give the tire iron to me. That will help me pry open this door. In addition, Sam provided me his computer's password. Never even consider it. With a reed face, Allison said, this is where we will need to exercise caution. Do not act hastily. Do you hear me? Please give me some time so I can consider this. I will have to learn everything I can about your spouse. Samantha. I know people at the federal level. I'll see what I can pull out of them now. You two calm down and don't make any foolish moves in the interim. Alan, are you hearing me? Even though our departments are not the same, I am still in charge of you. I understand. Yes, I understand. At least now that I had a first name and knew exactly how far they would go to set me up, the man sheepishly remarked. However, why? After Allison departed, Samantha and Alan ascended the stairs, signaling the conclusion of the video. The master bedroom is where the following video was shot. Alan removed his tie and jacket and tossed them upon the back of my chair. Samantha undressed and he put on the remainder of his clothes. He took her in his arms when she was undressed. Sam, hurry up. Why don't we enjoy ourselves under the covers? He smiled wryly as he asked. With a smile back at him, Samantha looked up. She said, I guess it wouldn't hurt after all. In not too long, this will be our bedroom. It would be best for you to adjust to it. She looked over and saw my ring lying on the dresser. Mike, have a look at this. His wedding band was still on. How considerate. I may possibly pawn it along with the rest of his junk. They both chuckled at it. She went back to the bed after tossing the ring back onto the dresser. Which side am I on then? Alan inquired. Samantha gestured to the side that was nearest the door. She told him about that side. After removing the blankets, Alan climbed into bed. After that, Samantha climbed on top of him. It's so lovely not to have to worry about your leg being sore from my weight. How damaging is that? I had never heard her gripe about my leg until now. Unless she sat on it for an extended period of time, I usually didn't mind. Even yet, I didn't tell her until just now. I assumed she was never troubled by my injury. Yes, it is correct. Mike is just a cripple. Alan gave a smirk. I'll let you know that I'm in excellent form. Give me your body, please. Samantha squirmed about on top of him, laughing. Drill that enormous piece of meat right through me. She made a demand. Alan gave in. Don't you still take the medication? He nudged his way into her and asked. Samantha answered him, "No, I stopped taking those today." I had no idea that she was taking medication, so this was new. She was aware of my low sperm count, which was a hereditary condition based on the opinions of other doctors I had consulted over the years. However, we had already talked about it, and Sam never seemed worried about it. It just meant that my chances of becoming a father were diminished. "Next, prepare to become pregnant," stated Alan. I ended the video after I was finished, unable to continue watching. I went to the restroom as soon as I felt my meal start to rise again. I emptied my intestines into the toilet, cleaned my face, and took deep, slow breaths while counting to 10. I was in shock at what I had just witnessed. Our wedding vows had been trampled on by the only lady in my entire life that I had ever truly loved. And for the past few years, she had done it in the bed that we had shared. I started to question if I had ever truly known her. I went back into the room and glanced over the photos Allison had given me after gathering my thoughts. Each one was labeled with the location and bore a date and time stamp in the lower right corner. Dallas, Texas, returning to my laptop. I opened my calendar. I also have receipts for any expenses I incurred because I was in Seattle on the days the pictures were purportedly taken in Dallas. I reasoned that would be sufficient evidence that I wasn't the man in the pictures. Upon closer inspection, I could not see any distinct facial features. It seemed interesting to me. Then it dawned on me. After looking at the pictures, I saw that the man's right thigh was visible in 2 of them. In neither picture were there any scars. I could simply demonstrate that these pictures were all fabricated. However, why? Unless... Forgive her. Samantha's prenuptial agreement gave me the impression that she was using it as a pretext for cheating on me during our divorce. Delta denoted that the guilty partner departed the marriage with nothing but the things they had brought into it, and without any help. Upon careful inspection of the divorce documents, I saw that Samantha had gone well beyond what the prenuptial agreement allowed. Not only did she want my house, but she also wanted my $401K and 80% of all the marital assets, plus an enormous maintenance payment. Allison forced me to sign the documents before I saw them because I knew she would never get that much in court. I was curious to learn everything I could about this Alan persona. I went to Samantha's legal firm's website because I assumed he was associated with them. As expected, I located him. Alan Williams is a junior partner who recently joined the company after moving out of New York. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I made the decision to have our investigators look into his past. I turned off my laptop and got ready for bed, but my phone was still open. I recognized it as Samantha's father, Jacob Green. Even though I was shocked that he would call at such a late hour, I chose to answer. "This is Jake Green, Mike. Boy, how the devil are you?" he asked in that sardonic way of his own. "To be honest, Pop, I've had better days," I responded. "You've probably already." Jacob said, "Langley told me that you and Sam are getting divorced while we were at the club." To my astonishment, he inquired about my reaction to the news of my daughter's impending divorce. When I tried to call Sam, his phone went straight to voicemail. "Would you mind telling me more? It is accurate. I served her this evening." Allegations. "Boy, did you really do it?" With a stern tone, Jacob inquired. This was very much like him, direct and concise. It was among the qualities I found admirable about the man. Ian Seurat, no. However, she did. How come? You're telling me that she cheated on you, yet she says you had an affair with her? Pop, that's precisely what I'm telling you. Have you got any evidence for this? Yes. Would you like to take a look at it? I questioned him. In actuality, I really do. How are you doing? I am on my way over now. After I informed him where I was staying, he confirmed it again. I'll arrive in 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how late it is to me. I would like to view this purported proof. Pop, I'll be around. We finished the call, I told him, and I prepared everything for him to see before brewing a small pot of coffee because I knew he would want some. A tap on the door prompted me to reach for my revolver and scan the crowd, recognizing it as Pop and confirming he was by himself. I pried open the door. Son, it's just me. There isn't anyone else present. Pop advised to keep my pistol close at hand, but he would unlatch the chain and unlock the door. Enter now, I informed him. As soon as he entered, his eyes widened upon seeing the 9mm handgun. How in the hell are you anticipating? Problems? He inquired. startled, always. As I shut and locked the door, I informed him, "Now will you please put that fucking thing away? It unnerves me," said Pop. I secured the firearm and replaced it in the holster at my side. "Would you want a cup of coffee before we begin?" I made a suggestion, extending a paper cup. With a shrug, Pop accepted the cup. "How in the hell?" he stated. After filling each cup, we took a seat. "Is it true that this is coffee?" He took a timid drink and inquired. I said, "That's what the package says," which made him chuckle. "Display your abilities to me." "At last," he said. Allison sent me the pictures earlier in the evening, and I delivered them to him. Pop perused them. With wrinkles on his forehead, he handed them back to me. "How do you feel?" I inquired. Indeed, there seems to be a little resemblance between the individual in those pictures. Whoever he is, though, he isn't you. Why do you say that? First of all, I have seen you wearing swimwear. There's no scar on that man's right thigh. In one or two of those pictures, Pop said. It appears as though he is fully weight bearing down on his right knee. You've never done that for me. I grinned in response to his observation. He was accurate, but still. I have never been able to fully rest my weight on that knee since I was shot. I also added one more thing. Examine the time and date stamps on those pictures. As said by Allison, it took place in Dallas. I own the receipts as proof that I was present in Seattle at the time these photos are said to have been shot. Interesting, says the elderly man. You claim to have evidence that Samantha is unfaithful to you. I'd like to see it. Pop, it's quite graphic. I forewarned. And he dismissed my worries. I'm a boy who is an adult. Nothing that I haven't seen before exists. I promise you that. All right, give it what you want. It was earlier in the evening. Following my departure from the residence, I informed him that he was frowning as he watched the action unfold on my laptop when I started the films. After they were done, I mentioned the security cameras that are live. Alan and Samantha were dozing off in my bed, nude, legs and arms encircling one another. He said, I've seen enough. Please turn it off. I shut down the video and shut my laptop. Okay, I did ask. Son, I accept your story. At last, he said softly. He gazed at me after a few moments of profound concentration. Do you believe that your time on the task force has anything to do with this? I had thought about the same thing, and I was intrigued by his query. I thus desired to hear his justification. Why do you ask that? He was obviously selecting his words carefully. Son, I haven't precisely told you the whole truth. Please be aware that I have been sworn to a certain degree of confidentiality, just like you. I get it, Pop. I gave him comfort. He whispered to me. I am fully aware of the task force. I'm also aware of the notorious group MASS, the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, which was founded by a radical lawyer who wanted to punish unfaithful husbands. Sadly, her ambition for power much exceeded that goal. Please give me a brief explanation of that, Pop. Silently, I inquired. With a heavy sigh, he went on. Even though Trudy isn't Samantha's biological mother, Sammy has only truly known her as a mother. Poppy once more. Although I was aware that Trudy was Pop's second wife, I never brought it up. I always assumed he would talk about it if you wanted to. And he was now Sam's biological mother, abandoned when she was a young child. I regret learning that, I informed him. He gave a headshake. Be not Patricia. She went by that name, grew close to the woman who initiated that. Imus asked me to co-finance her surgery. She reasoned that, considering some of my political and charitable contributions, I would be receptive. I got to know the woman. As Mona Larson watched, she spit out her snake oil. Naturally, I declined to assist her. Although I sympathized with her, I could not support her in what she intended to do. Conversely, Patty not only approved of it, but also left us to assist Mona because she felt so strongly about it. Bill Jackson was the divorce attorney I hired. She relocated to Washington, D.C. to work with Mona, taking on her maiden name of Weatherspoon. Did you just say Weatherspoon? I inquired. Indeed, I did. Why? Pop inquired. It is in my memory that just months prior to my shooting, Pat Weatherspoon passed away while in police custody. Was she the first woman you married? Yes, Papa mutely replied. But she did not simply pass away. It was Mona Larson who killed her. She allegedly wore a poison capsule of some sort around her neck. Mona was said to have sent her a note stating that her services were no longer needed. When she did, that sent off a hypnotic suggestion that she slap her neck. She was already dead when her body hit the ground since the poison capsule had broken. I was ignorant of all that. He wasn't my case, I told him. Pop answered, "It's neither here nor there. I'd already remarried by then." Despite being unable to conceive, Trudy gladly adopted Sammy. After wiping his eyes, he turned to face me and continued talking. "I am familiar with him. Amos has a track record of pursuing ex-agents. It's how they seek retribution. I wanted to know if you thought they were involved because of this. Although I had considered it, I believed that MMS as a business entity had been annihilated. In theory, yes, but there are still a lot of renegade agents and operatives being apprehended." Pop mentioned that he had heard that a few former contractors had just been taken into custody. I claimed I hadn't heard that, damn it. Not that I've been in a position where I needed to know exactly. "Tell me then, how you found out about all of this after Patty departed. My divorce was filed. Back then, Bill Jackson continued to practice family law, and he took on my case. I informed him what had transpired. He told me that he had heard of Larson and her organization, along with a few other people. Pop told me he ran this insane idea by me. I began assembling a funding mechanism because I found it appealing. We established a board. Everything was planned out. Hell, I raised the money to buy Fort Apache, that abandoned army base, you know. I also petitioned Congress to provide federal backing. The rest is known to you. My father told me so. You were aware of me when we first met. I recommended. Son, I knew everything there was to know. All that Pop mentioned, including your reputation as a tough guy who doesn't accept no for an answer. So when we originally met, all you were doing was pulling my chain?" I made a joke. Pop grinned and gave a head nod. He said, "It's what I do best, son." In addition, I was curious to know if the rumors were true. "What will you do now, then?" "Tomorrow morning I have an appointment to see an attorney. I want the protective order to be revoked. After that, I want to kick Sam out of my house." "Restraining decree?" Pop asked in shock. "She filed a restraining order." "Yeah, can you believe it? Then I'm going to file a counterclaim based on infidelity, and I intend to use the prenuptial agreement you had to sign. If I get my way, someone will go to jail." "Jail?" Pop asked. "The last time I checked, attempted extortion, conspiracy, and perjury are still criminal offenses. So is fabricating evidence. Things have changed over the previous 7 years, but I do not believe they have changed significantly." Pop chuckled at that. "Good luck. Just do me one small favor, please," Pop said. "What is that?" "I understand you have to do what you have to do, but just try not to damage my young baby too much, please," he begged silently. I recognized what he meant and nodded in agreement. "I will do my best," I told him. "I do have a few questions, if you don't mind." "What is that? Could you tell me about Sam's first husband?" I hadn't asked Samantha about it since I assumed it happened in the past. Pop sighed deeply and nodded his head. "His name is Alvin Morrison. He is an accountant. Last I heard, he worked for a downtown financial services firm. He and Sam met at college and married after graduation. Seems like a pleasant enough guy. However, if you ask me, he's a bit of a chicken," Pop said. "What happened?" "Sam claims he cheated on her," Pop responded, kicked his buttocks to the curb. The divorce was filed based on the prenuptial agreement. I didn't hear from him after that. "Sounds familiar, doesn't it?" I asked. Pop's eyes widened and his brows arched as he glanced at me. "Now that you've mentioned it." "Yes, it does," he eventually stated. "Do you think she set him up as well?" "I don't know till I check into it. But it does seem like a possibility, doesn't it?" "I guess it does, which signifies nothing at this point," I interrupted. "I'm just thinking aloud right now, but it is something that should be looked into." "I agree." Pop spoke as he stood to leave. "Please keep me in the loop." "We will see, Pop," I told him sadly. He claimed to understand, but I could see he was disappointed with his daughter. We shook hands and I led him to the door. Before departing, he turned to face me. "I apologize for all of this, son," Pop replied quietly. It was the first time I'd heard him apologize for anything, and I knew it wasn't easy. "You are a wonderful man and do not deserve this. I appreciate it. Pop's apology is accepted. One final thing, son. Stay in contact, will you?" "Of course," I replied. To my amazement, he hugged me as a father would. The son then left. I closed the door, returned to bed, pulled the blankets down, and fell asleep. The following day, I awoke earlier than usual. I got ready and then gathered my belongings for the day. I didn't care to verify the surveillance system. I could always look at it when I got back. After a light breakfast and a refreshing caramel mocha, I went to the office. Classic Toll is keeping me company. When I arrived, my boss, Jack Iverson, CEO of Iverson Security Services, IAC, welcomed me into his office. I encountered Terry Torres, the Chief of Investigative Services, in his office, so I headed to Jack's corner office. "Morning, Mike," Jack stated. "I didn't expect you till after your appointment with Alice. I couldn't sleep and decided to come in," I explained. "I understand," Jack informed me. "I took the liberty of briefing. Terry, regarding your predicament, I hope you do not mind." "Not at all. In fact, I have a few leads that could be valuable," Terry asked. "I found out last night that Samantha is cheating on me with Alan Williams, a partner at the Hempstead Law Group. I couldn't print a photo, but he is on their website. If it doesn't work, try searching for a hole on Google. Perhaps you can take a picture there." Both men chuckled at this. "That is a start." "Anything else?" Terry asked. "Yeah, I want you to find an Alvin Morrison. I suppose he works for a financial services company in town." I said. "So who precisely is he?" Terry asked. "He is Samantha's first spouse. I want to learn everything about their divorce. It should be public record, so it will be easy to find. I'd be grateful if you could verify his employment, if he is in town." "That should be relatively simple to execute," Terry said. "But just curious, what are your intentions? I would like to speak with him about his divorce. I have a feeling Samantha has played this little game before." I said. Terry bowed his head as he took notes. "One more thing. I need to know everything you can about these photographs." I handed Terry one of the photos from the packet Allison gave me the day before. "Damn, you're not asking for much, boss," Terry inquired cynically as he looked at the photograph. Jack examined it once Terry handed it to him. "You weren't even in Dallas when this was photographed?" Jack observed. "Assume this date stamp is correct?" "No, I was not," I responded. "The photo may take some time, but I should have answers to the rest of this for you by the end of the day," Terry told me. "Do not worry, Mike. I'll get my finest people on this and send everything we uncover to you and Alice." "Thank you, Terry. I sincerely appreciate it." I informed him that I owed you. He smiled at that. "Buy me a cold one and we'll call it even." He said, "Well, I'd better get to it." "I will be in touch." "Thank you, Terry," Jack said as Terry left. I repeated the sentiment and Jack motioned for me to close the door. He stared at me with concern before speaking. "Do you believe this could be a rogue mouse operation, Mike? You know how those people are about getting revenge," he replied. "I do not know, Jack. I thought so at first, but I am not sure." I did learn one intriguing fact, however. "What is that?" Jack inquired. "Samantha's birth mother was Pat Witherspoon, a Mosstop field operator. That's fascinating. She's been deceased for a time. Based on what I have heard, tell you what I'll do. I will contact Bill Jackson and Oscar Warren to see if they have heard anything. Oscar's pretty much the alpha dog at Fort Apache now," Jack remarked. "That is what I heard as well. Mike, you've got a good bunch of folks behind you on this. Let them handle the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, take some time off, perhaps go fishing or something," Jack said, concerned. "I appreciate that, Jack, but I can't just sit there and let Samantha screw me over. I told him I understood how you felt, Mike. Really, I do. But maybe you should sit this one out? You're no longer a field agent," Jack told me. "I understand, but I can't sit back and do nothing. I'm simply not wired that way. No, you are not. And that is one of the qualities I admire about you. But you're not much good to me in your current condition, Mike," Jack stated. "We have your back. Take some time off, regardless. You have earned it. When we learn something new, you will be the first to know." I looked at Jack's face and understood he was this close to ordering me to take time off. The professional side of me recognized he was correct. I needed to step back and decompress. And he was correct. I had a good group of people behind me. After some thought, I nodded in accord. "You're correct, Jack." I finally said, "I just need to grab a few items from my desk before I see Alice." "Mike, you made a good decision," Jack replied with a wry smile. "Go ahead, do what you have to do. We will be in touch." "Keep me in the loop." "I will," I told him. "Thanks." I went to my office and opened up my expenditure report. which included copies of receipts for the days I was in Seattle. Then I transferred the 2 downloaded videos to a thumb drive. I changed my out-of-office email auto-response message and then packed up my belongings on the way out. I noticed Jack smiling and nodding his head. I smiled back and left. I arrived at the building where Alice Hawkins worked, parked, and went inside. I arrived about 15 minutes early, but I knew Alice would not mind. I checked in with the receptionist and was sent to the waiting area. A few minutes later, she led me to Alice's office. "Good morning, Mr. Jacobs." Alice spoke as she extended a hand. "Mr. Iverson advised me to expect you this morning. Would you want a cup of coffee? The shop on the first floor serves an excellent caramel mocha." "That would be great, Miss Hawkins," I said, "please." I started to take money out of my pocket, but Alice stopped me. My reward. "Sally, would you mind running down for me? 2 big caramel mochas. Get yourself something as well," Alice said as she took money from her purse. "Of course, Miss Hawkins, thank you." The lovely young receptionist stated this as she collected Alice's money. After Sally had left, Alice motioned to the front of her desk. So I sat down. "Mr. Iverson informed me that you have been served with divorce papers," Alice spoke. "That's correct, Miss Hawkins," I responded. "Please, Alice, do you have the paperwork with you?" "Yes, I do," I told her while opening my briefcase. I grabbed the envelope and gave it to her. Alice read over the papers, frowning. When she finished, she placed the papers down and scowled at me. "There are very severe charges being leveled here." Alice eventually spoke through tight teeth. "Is there evidence of infidelity? Because if there is, you should be aware that I do not represent cheats. There is proof, but none of it will implicate me. If you are interested, I can show you. If not, I'll look for someone more objective to handle my case," I informed her sharply. She seems to shrink slightly at that. "Mr. Jacobs, please show me." I handed her the packet of images and saw her eyes expand as she flipped through them. She shook her head and glanced at me as she concluded. "Can you refute this?" "Absolutely," I told her while standing up with my cane. Alice looked surprised as I unbuckled my belt and slipped my pants. "Jacob, please. That isn't essential," she explained. "I will determine what is necessary." I let out a growl. Her gaze shifted to my exposed right thigh. She sighed, shocked. "I nearly lost this leg while serving my country. I spent months in the hospital undergoing surgery and physical therapy, and I had to learn to walk again," I hissed. "I still can't put my weight on that knee like the man in the images can." "Do you believe me now, Miss Hawkins, or do I move my business down the street? You're claiming these photographs were fabricated?" Alice inquired. "I'm not making any allegations, Miss Hawkins. I'm telling you, those photographs are completely faked on top of that. I have expenditure reports and receipts that show I was in Seattle, Washington when the images were taken. I am fine, but even I cannot be in 2 places at once. Now tell me, will you represent me or should I go somewhere else?" "I will take your case, Mr. Jacobs," Alice finally said, handing back the photographs. "Please pull your pants back up." When Sally came with our coffee, I pulled my trousers up and tied my belt. She looked at me puzzled. "Is everything okay?" she asked, simply proving a point. "Everything's fine," I told her before I took my seat. Sally looked to Alice for confirmation. "Everything's fine, Sally." "Thank you," she murmured as Sally handed her the change from her coffee purchase. Sally smiled and exited the office. Alice gazed at me before sipping her coffee. "I apologize for doubting you, Mr. Jacobs. I hope we don't have to go through this again. Please call me Mike, and I accept your apologies. I hope I don't have to drop true in court, but I will if I need to prove my argument," I told her. Alice grinned at that. "I see that your reputation precedes you, Mike, and I doubt you'll have to do that. But to be honest, it's wonderful to know you're willing to go above and beyond if necessary. What more have you got for me?" I took out my phone and showed Alice the video I recorded of my confrontation with Allison. She grimaced while watching the video and then handed the phone back. "So your wife has retained Allison Cartwright?" Alice spoke. "She has quite a reputation as well. Ethics does not appear to be an issue for her. According to the video, I would like a duplicate of it. It will come in help when I make a complaint against her." "Complaint?" "Yes. That video depicts multiple ethical infractions and at least one possible criminal crime. Furthermore, she accompanied you to your home without a police officer. And this is exceedingly unique. What else have you got? I handed her the thumb drive containing the 2 videos I captured from my monitoring system. Alice gazed at both of them. A smile appeared on her face. "So," I asked. Alice added to her complaint. "What's this about drawing a gun on Miss Cartwright? Did you actually draw a gun on a court officer?" "Yes, Why?" Alice inquired. She nodded as I described my experiences with the task force. "And you believed maybe your wife or Miss Cartwright had something or someone ready to ambush, drug, or assault you? What about that?" "Yes," I said. "In reality, I was shot in a very identical circumstance." I see what Alice said. "Fortunately for you, Mike, I'm aware with the task force and some of Mrs. tactics. I've represented a number of the folks your task force has assisted. I'm sure Miss Cartwright will attempt to make a point of it. Do not worry, I have things under control." "Thank you," I replied. "So let me see if I've got this correctly. You own the house you shared with Samantha, right?" "Yes. It was passed down to me by my grandparents long before I met Samantha," I explained. "How about your bank accounts? Samantha closed 80% of our accounts and Allison frozen the remaining ones." Alice glanced at me in shock. "She stopped the accounts after your wife got 80%? "Correct. I stated that there was no legitimate cause for this, other than pure vindictiveness, and an attempt to slow you back and prevent you from retaining legal services." Alice asked, "Why are they doing all of this to you?" "Isn't that the $64,000 question, counselor?" I asked cynically. "Hopefully your company's investigator will come up with some answers." Alice spoke. "Yes, Mr. Iverson informed me that Mr. Torres will handle the case. I'm looking forward to hearing what he finds out." I told her, "First things first, I need to lift the restraining order and get you back into your home. Then I need to get your assets recovered. In the meantime, I will respond to this petition with one of our own. Have you got a copy of your prenuptial agreement?" "Yes, I do," I told her, grabbing it from my briefcase. Alice checked it over, put it away, and handed me a checklist. "It will probably take me a number of days to work this out. Do what you can from the checklist. Are you prepared for funds till we receive the money back into your account?" "Yes, I will be okay," I told her. "All right, Mike, I got it from here. I shouldn't need to tell you not to do something stupid in the meanwhile. But I'm going anyway. I do not want to have to bail you out of jail." "Not a problem, Alice," I told her with a chuckle. "I have things under control." "No, you don't," she replied. "At least not yet. Your cheating pig of a wife has just issued you with divorce papers, falsely accused you of infidelity based on faked proof, forced you out of your home, taken a significant amount of money, and intends to steal the majority of your assets as well. That's just for starters. But we'll get this under control. We exchanged contact information and finished the encounter on the way out. I dropped by Sally's desk and paid a substantial retainer. Then I left, feeling like I had some control over the situation. I stopped for lunch and got a call between bites of my cheeseburger. When I noticed it was from Jack, I answered the phone. "How did things go for Alice?" he asked. "Went well," I said. "I hope something happens soon." "Good," Jack replied. I chatted to Bill and Oscar. They aren't aware of anything right now, but Oscar has indicated he'll see you later this afternoon or tonight. I believe he will want some backstory. I told him where you hang out. Not an issue. I'm certain he does. I said, "Anything else?" "Terry has some information for you. He is sending you an email with his summary thus far. I don't want to speak too much on the phone, but I'll tell you this. It turns out that Miss Cartwright also handled Samantha's previous divorce." "Interesting." I said I suspected you may say that, Jack said. "Anyway, I cannot hear the television in the background. Are you at the new sports bar and grill?" "Yeah." I told him I was eating a big cheeseburger. "Actually, not awful." "Maybe I'll give it a shot one of these days," Jack stated. "You take care of yourself, and I do not want to see you here tomorrow. I get it." "Got it, boss," I replied. "Good. By the way, great job on the monthly report. It appears that things are improving out west. Thanks. I also noticed this. Okay, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you shortly, Mike." We ended the call, and I returned to my burger. I was almost finished when my phone broke. I received a text message from Terry Alvin Morrison, financial planner, Tri-States Financial Services. A nearby location and phone number are then provided. I acknowledged the SMS and received a nearly immediate response. "More to come. We will send an email." "Thanks," I wrote back. "That was quick. We are the finest, boss." He responded. I responded to his message with a thumbs-up emoji and phoned Alvin's number. To my surprise, he responded after the first ring. Thank you for recognizing Tri-State's Financial Services as the finest in the business. I'm Alvin Morrison. How can I help you safeguard your financial future now? I was caught off guard for a brief minute. At first, I assumed this was a recording, but then I realized it was a real person. Yes, my name is Michael Jacobs. I'd like to contact you as soon as possible. I responded. Absolutely, Mr. Jacobs. I would love to meet you, Alvin stated. I just happen to have an opening at 1 p.m. Does that work for you? I looked at my watch before responding. That would give me about an hour, assuming I could complete my burger within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Yes, it would be ideal. I'll meet you at 1 p.m. Thank you, I said. I am looking forward to seeing you, Mr. Jacobs, Alvin enthusiastically stated before we finished the call. I ran a fast Google search to check how much guys like Alvin earned in an hour and made a mental note of it. I had no intention of acquiring any of his services at this time. Still, I decided to compensate him for his time and whatever information he might supply. I left after finishing my lunch. As I drove away from the parking lot, I heard a phrase from an old Tull song on my vehicle sound. The witch's promise was approaching. He believed he was listening while giggling. You flew. Ian, you got that shit right? I spoke to no one in particular. I finally arrived at the building where Alvin worked, parked, and entered. I presented myself to the receptionist, who led me to Alvin's office. I spotted a decently tall, lanky man a few years younger than myself, dressed in a business suit, white shirt, and tie. He grinned as he stood and shook my hand. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs, he said in welcome. Would you want a cup of coffee? Of course, I said, sit down. The receptionist asked how I enjoyed my coffee before leaving and returning a few moments later with a steaming mug of coffee. I thanked her and took a drink, satisfied with the flavor of the hot brew. So, Mr. Jacobs, what can I do for you today? Are you wanting to invest or establish a retirement portfolio? We provide some of the greatest packages in the market, and I guarantee a good return on your investment, Alvin joyfully stated, smiling throughout. I wondered if the smile had been surgically placed onto his face. Please call me Mike, I explained, attempting to put him at ease before getting into the real reason for my visit. Okay, Mike. And feel free to call me Alvin, he continued with a steady smile. Thanks, Alvin, I responded, almost feeling bad about what I was going to do next. I'm sorry, but I'm not here to purchase any of your stuff. I'm here to inquire about your divorce from Samantha Green. Alvin's smile vanished and his face turned grim. I'm sorry, Mr. Jacobs, but it is not up for discussion. I'm afraid I will have to ask you to go now. Alvin let out a roar. I took out a little stack of $100 from my pocket and counted 3 as his eyes widened. I understand this is a sensitive topic for you, Alvin. I intend to reimburse you for your time and any information you may supply. I assume financial planners in this area earn around $40 per hour. I am willing to pay you $300 for the same length of time. I responded with $3 100 bills in my hand. I noticed him looking at the money as he contemplated my offer. Then his demeanor softened. That is quite generous of you, Mike. He eventually spoke. I just have one question before I decide whether or not to accept your offer. Anything? I told him. Are you a private investigator or a police officer? I am not. I used to be a federal agent, but it was a long time ago. What happened before this? I said, pointing to my leg. He looked where I pointed at the cane. He then nodded his head. All right, he replied. I accept your offer. I handed him the bills. Thank you. You are welcome. Would you mind if I recorded our conversation? I want to make sure I get everything correct. That's all right, he replied, shrugging his shoulders. I took out my phone and began the audio recording app interview with Alvin Morrison. I spoke into the recorder, adding the date and time. So, Alvin, what can you tell me? He began by saying there wasn't much to tell. Samantha and I met in college. We shared a few lessons, and I was drawn to her. We dated, fell in love, and did the typical stuff. We were married right out of college. She took me to visit her father, Jacob Green. I asked. Yes, him. He despised me from the start. I know he's wealthy, but I never imagined him to be so rude and profane. I actually chuckled at that. Anyway, everything proceeded smoothly for nearly 5 years. We were discussing having children and buying a house. Basically, everything young married couples talk about. I arrived home from work one day and found her at the kitchen table with another woman. At first, I thought she was Samantha's buddy from the legal office where she worked. Would that be Hempstead? I asked. Alvin nodded. Yes, that would be the one. Anyway, I walked into the kitchen and said hello. The other woman handed me an envelope and told me I had been served. I looked up and saw Samantha accusing me of infidelity. Have you ever cheated on her? Never. I adored Samantha. I know I'm not the strongest or most handsome person, but I still liked her. Furthermore, I would never harm her in any way. Fine. Did they possess evidence of this supposed adultery? I asked the other woman, who told me that Samantha's lawyer had given her a smaller packet containing pictures. She threatens to send them out to my friends, family, and even co-workers, claiming to have more and presenting a video. Unless, that is, I signed the documents there and then. Naturally, I declined to sign them until I could consult with a lawyer. Samantha stated I had to leave immediately, and that she also had a restraining order. Many of my belongings were already packed by her. If I didn't sign, her attorney threatened to use the other evidence she had against me. When I went to check into a motel after leaving, none of my cards would work. That's when I discovered Samantha had deleted everything from our accounts. Our savings of more than $100,000 was completely depleted. In the end, my parents hosted me. They gave me enough credit to visit a lawyer, but the lawyer was essentially useless. I returned to the condo to gather more belongings and maybe reason with Samantha. I overlooked the protective order. Anyhow, when I arrived there, she was in bed with some pig. I snapped and followed him. However, he was far larger than I was. I needed to be brought to the hospital in an ambulance after he severely beat me and kicked my behind. I was shackled to the bed when I woke up. At that point, I was informed that I was being placed under arrest for breaking a restraining order and having illicit graphic videos. Following my release from the hospital, I was brought to the police station. The caseworker detective found that the pictures on my phone were taken after I was rendered unconscious. Thus, even though the charges were withdrawn, the harm had already begun. I got let go from my job. My entire life essentially fell apart. And what about the allegation that you broke the restraining order? It turns out that was also a fabrication. No restraining order was in place. Furthermore, the documents Samantha's attorney handed me weren't registered with the court. That didn't matter, though. In the end, I was locked up for a weekend. Alvin spit. How come? Then, Alvin snarled as they started to destroy me in every manner they could. When it was all done, I had nothing left. Even though I lost my work, I was still required to pay the condo's mortgage and maintenance. In an attempt to stay afloat, I grabbed any job I could. It's only now that I'm starting to see the bright side that I finally made it on here. The passageway. Do you still possess the photos they sent you showing your purported adultery? I inquired. Indeed I do, in actuality, Alvin stated as he took out his briefcase. He produced a tiny frayed envelope and gave it to me. Do you store them in a briefcase? Surprised, I asked. My parents are the ones I still live with, and I would be devastated if they saw them. I've been intending to discard them for a while now, but I haven't had the time. I understood and nodded. Then I glanced through the photos and I was stunned by what I saw. Allison handed me some pictures, and they looked just like the background and the postures she had chosen. The woman in the photos appeared to be the same person as well. This series of photos differed in just two ways. First, there were differences in the time and date stamps. Furthermore, the man appeared somewhat leaner and shorter in these series of pictures. Apart than that, they looked the same. Do you mind if I hold on to these for a little while? There's someone I know who can examine these photos. I couldn't care less if you kept them, said Alvin. I'm grateful, I stated. Tell me, have you thought about filing a lawsuit against your ex-wife's lawyer? After speaking with a few attorneys, they informed me that nothing could be done. It seems that my income was insufficient for their preferences. I understand. Now, how are you doing? For years, I was a complete mess. Since then, I haven't even dated a lady. As you can guess, I'm still working on paying off my debt and struggle a lot with trust. At least you are no longer responsible for paying alimony or your condo's mortgage. In an attempt to provide him a glimmer of optimism, I told him. My words were greeted with a look of bewilderment and amazement. What topic are you discussing? He inquired. I have been paying that woman about $3,000 a month for almost 8 years, for both the mortgage on the condo I used to live in and for alimony. I still owe the mortgage for the next 18 years, plus a little over 2 years of alimony. Samantha sold the condo at the same time she got married again. Didn't you be told that? I inquired. No, Alvin said, giving a head shake. Nobody spoke up. Samantha's lawyer made sure it was directly deducted from my paycheck and placed into Samantha's account. After a fast calculation, I calculated that Samantha owed this person slightly more than $210,000. There was more, and I realized that Samantha's financial records would require Terry's investigation. Somewhere there was an enormous amount of money in an account in her name. Maybe she was giving Allison a portion of the cash she had extorted from Alvin. Could you please call HR department and ask them to provide you with the details of the money's transfer? I inquired. Alvin said, I'll ask. What if they told me they didn't have it? I'll then request that my attorney issue a subpoena to obtain that data. There's something really off about this. Although I'm not a lawyer, Alvin, it seems like you have a strong case against your ex-wife and her representative. How are you aware of this? Did Alvin ask? Because Samantha just performed a very identical prank on me yesterday. Would you be willing to testify in court about this? I asked. Indeed, Alvin growled. Do you believe she should be arrested for this? I responded. I think that's a definite possibility. Alvin answered, Hell yes. I'll testify. If you're good with that, Alvin, I'll have my lawyer contact you. If not, I'm more than happy to do that. Alvin answered. I gave a nod of the head and got up using my cane. Alvin stepped up beside me and extended his hand, which I took. We'll communicate soon. I informed him that I was going to my hotel room. When I arrived, I took out the pictures that Alvin had given me and contrasted them with the ones I had. Indeed, they were almost the same. Reaching for my phone, I dialed Terry Torres. Terry, are you anywhere near my hotel? He asked in response. I inquired. He answered, I can be there in about an hour. What's going on? I have a brief task for you. You are familiar with me. I'm game for any task. Terry answered. His speech carried a smile that I could hear. All right. I need you to stop by the hotel room. I would like you to look at something I have. I'm en route. Terry added, I checked my home surveillance system and we ended the call. Alan and Samantha had left this morning and nothing new had been saved as of yet. I grabbed my phone and dialed Alice's number. True, Jacobs? When she answered the phone, she inquired. I heard her gasp with surprise when I informed her about my meeting with Alvin. After checking, I can confirm that the restraining order is indeed in effect. However, I would really like to talk to Mr. Morrison. I gave her Alvin's contact information and we hung up. Terry was pounding on my door by then. Who's in charge? When I let him inside, he inquired. He seemed astonished when I showed him the photos that Alvin had sent me. Could you elaborate on this? I inquired. Terry said, comparing the two pictures, I've about this, but I've never actually seen anyone get away with it. Heard the question I posed. Terry said the photographs were deep fake. In essence, it would be very tough to refute phony images and films made by someone with the necessary expertise. In this instance, it appears that the person responsible is fabricating pictures of married couples having sex using the same backdrop and two human figures. Pretty lazy, in my opinion. Do you believe we could convince a judge that they are fakes? I inquired. Yes, I am aware of a few photographers who are proficient in this field, but it would be simpler if we had the originals, which I believe are digital. Fine. Pick a few from each batch and see what you can research on my behalf, I informed him. Anything further? Yes, for you I did a Williams search. He moved here from New York and recently joined Hempstead. He is married and has 2 children. Terry gave me a picture of their family. Alan, a gorgeous blonde woman, and 2 attractive young children were there. For a lawyer, probably no older than 7 years old. He is incredibly foolish to be unfaithful to such a lovely family. Tell me about it, I said. Rhonda is her name. She is still in New York since she is a state representative and the heir to a reasonably well-off man. There's a prenup involved. I'll bet you $1 to a donut hole. Yes, I replied, on both fronts. Terry stated that I couldn't resist grinning. Yes, Alan Williams would incur heavy costs. What more is there? Terry and I inquired. As you requested, I looked into Morrison's divorce. Quite simple. Samantha claimed in her divorce papers that she had committed adultery. She received a solid order for 10 years of spousal support, and the terms and conditions of the prenuptial agreement were upheld, barring a remarriage. Additionally, Alvin was mandated to pay their condo's mortgage. According to Terry, the decision does specify that the 2 parties will receive an equal share of the earnings from the sale of the property. Thus, he has been supporting someone who doesn't deserve it, and paying Samantha for a mortgage that no longer exists. Do you know where the funds are going? I inquired. Cartwright opened a second account and had money deducted from Morrison's pay automatically. I couldn't uncover any information on that account, Terry stated. I'm not sure how Mawson survived for so long on what was left, to be honest. They didn't have kids, at least. Could you check into it if I could get you the account information? Determine the amount she has in it? Naturally. To be honest, though, obtaining any information might require a subpoena or a court order. Terry gave an explanation. Fulfill your obligations. See Alice if you require legal assistance. I'm assuming you've given her all of this already. Terry acknowledged that I had, and I'm sure Samantha is being followed by others. Of course, you are aware that they are also keeping an eye on you. I deduced that. I acknowledged. To be honest, I don't care. Allow them to squander their money and time by pursuing me. Terry laughed about that. I should probably get back to it now. I'll include what I currently have in an email to you, he stated. It seems like a plan. I eagerly await your report. Shaking his hand, I told him. Well done, Terry. The compliment made him smile. Regards, manager. He said, that means a lot. He smiled as he left the room, and I noted the extra bounce in his step. I meant what I said, and Terry was a decent man. I took a seat at my laptop and opened the home security system. It was nothing new, though. I watched TV while sitting back on the bed and thinking about what to do next. I detested having to wait on other people all the time. I've always been a man who demands things of others. Therefore, I was dying to wait. After a while, I heard someone knock on the door and quickly grabbed my cane and revolver. I got out of bed and made my way to the door. Who is present? I yelled. Warren! Oscar! From the other side came the voice of a man. As I scanned the crowd, I noticed him displaying his credentials. Examine. Is that you, really? Mr. Jacobs, that's a special agent questioning you, Oscar stated in a friendly manner. When I opened the door, I saw his beaming face. Though he appeared to be in better form, he was a little older than when I had last seen him. I allowed him to enter by opening the door. Oscar, it's good to see you. Lowering the pistol, I said. It's good to see you too, you elderly canine. He chuckled. I'm hoping you can recall how to secure that. That made me laugh. I believe I can handle it. It appears that anyone can now be made into a special agent. I made a joke. In actuality, though, I work as a deputy assistant special agent in charge. However, I'm okay with a single special agent. I understand you're a very successful executive these days. Yes. Thus, they inform me. I made a joke. What has brought you from Fort Apache all the way out here? Do you recall Pat Weatherspoon? I haven't heard that name in a very long time. She was the one who turned my first wife, you know, the person who warned me of the consequences of betraying Renee in the future. When Mona Larson performed her little Jedi mind trick, she passed away while under my care. I had no idea she was the ex-wife of Jake Green for all these years, and now you find yourself wed to her daughter. I was completely ignorant. No, of course you didn't, I told him. Then, Oscar remarked, none of us knew about her family connections. After the autopsy, we ultimately decided to cremate her body. Even her body was unclaimed by anyone. It's kind of depressing, isn't it? Considering who she was, all the agony and pain she inflicted was understandable. No, I don't. Oscar replied sourly. As far as I'm concerned, she killed Renee with her drugs and her games. And I still have a hospital full of her victims, men who were abused and tortured to the point of likely never recovering by Pat's goons. Mike, you were present. You got your fair share. One of them shot me. Recall? In silence, I said, I'll never forget. Do you believe her daughter is carrying on her legacy? Oscar inquired. I'm not sure. She doesn't quite match the description. Mike, a lot of the older profiles are no longer functional. These days, the game has completely changed. Instead of referring to themselves as Miss, they call themselves Sisterhood. Have you ever heard Samantha's attorney use that term? Never, said I. I responded, tell me if you succeed. All right, Oscar begged. Yes, I replied. Samantha doesn't really suit the previous profiles, as I mentioned, but she could certainly do so with that lawyer of hers, Allison Cartwright. Cartwright. That name escapes me. Oscar pondered. Inform you of my plans. I'll send Wiseman and his study group to take a closer look. Watch what ideas they generate. He continues to work on the assignment. Yes, Oscar shouted, when he and his spouse aren't frightening the living daylights out of would-be Lotharios. Amy works for a company, and I believe that almost every management has made advances towards her. That made me laugh. I've already met Ron Wiseman and have observed him and his spouse using their wheel of death. They even demonstrated some of his knife skills for me. I felt sorry for the idiots who approached Amy, to paraphrase Mr. T. What is happening then? Anything fresh? Since your boss and I spoke? When Oscar inquired, I told him what I had discovered since this morning. When I informed him about the pictures, he was particularly curious. I can't help but wonder if this Cartwright has victimized other people in the same way, Oscar stated, aside from you and Morrison. I will forward that to Wiseman. It sounds very much like there have been a few crimes committed here. While it might not be as involved as a task force, I definitely believe in going to jail. I'll put Wiseman on it immediately and get back to you on his findings. Regards, Oscar. Thank you very much. Many, I uttered. What are smiling Oscar's friends? I best head back now. I'll be eating my butt if Rita's making a pot roast and I don't get home in time for supper. Yes, it is correct. You wed the daughter of the boss? Since the last time I saw you, I assumed you had put on a few pounds. How is the situation right now? Fantastic, stated Oscar. This is the happiest I've felt in years. Give her and the kids my best then, I informed him. Mike, I'll take care of that. Regards, Oscar remarked, getting to his feet. No, my friend, thank you. We shook hands and I told him. We said our last goodbyes as I led him to the door. After checking the time, I made the decision to get dinner. So I picked up one of the downstairs restaurant and my cane. I enjoyed a delicious filet mignon, relaxed with a post-dinner drink by the poolside, and purchased a cigar from the gift store. A few hours later, I went back to my room and felt a little more at ease because I knew Samantha would probably be home by then. I then showered, turned on my laptop, and accessed my home security system. Sam and Alan and Allison have just entered the house. What, therefore, is so crucial that you were unable to inform me at work? Allison was questioned by Samantha. I received an update from the PI. Allison informed her that her husband had seen Alice Hawkins this morning. Thus, if you'd like to consult a lawyer, we were certain he would. Samantha, you're not understanding. Since Alice is a shark, getting the restraining order overturned will be her first move, and she'll be hunting for blood if I know her. There is more. Mike had an early afternoon conversation with your ex-husband, stated Allison. Samantha's face became white as I noticed. What did Alvin tell him, in your opinion? Panicked, Samantha inquired now. Everything Allison said, I assume, and we might be in serious trouble if your spouse pieces it all together. There is more. Mike served in the Home Front Security Task Force, according to my contact with whom I spoke. Genuinely fierce. She went on. He wasn't kidding when he told your father he killed people, which made Samantha recoil. Allison went on. He really won a lot of medals for his work. The PI also gave me an update that Oscar Warren, one of his former co-workers, paid him a visit today. Although I'm not sure what they discussed, I can venture another educated guess. Why is that such a big deal? Still perplexed, Samantha inquired. We're screwed, Allison remarked, if your spouse has the resources of a government agency that handles family disputes behind him. Maybe it's time to introduce Mike to someone, stated Alan. That drive is still there in me. There's a lot of juicy material here. Imagine the consequences for the authorities if they find out that a former federal agent has a computer loaded with illicit, spicily titled videos. Say what? Said Alan Allison. You can't put anything on his hard drive right now. It has been almost 24 hours since he last used his computer. In a minute, a forensic technician could detect that. Alan said, All right, then I'll email it to him. It could work, Allison suggested, but you must exercise extreme caution. Ensure that he is unable to trace it back to your PC. Regarding the account, what are your thoughts? Samantha asked. That account has hundreds of thousands of dollars. Allison said, I'll take care of that. What happens if none of this works? With worry evident in her tone, Samantha inquired. This is too much of a gamble. Allison warned her forcefully that if this doesn't work and we can't get Mike to recover, our only option will be to make sure he has an accident when he never wakes up. Are you following what I'm saying? Samantha acknowledged Allison's words with a hesitant nod of her head. And Alan, are you getting this? Yes, I understand, he said to her. I also got it. When all else failed, all three of them planned to kill me. The woman to whom I had promised both my life and my love had just consented to my demise, for the sake of money alone. It should have been obvious to her, of all people, that I dislike losing arguments, and I was not going to lose this one for sure. I took out my phone and placed my first call to my longtime FBI friend Ryan Harper. He replied and stated, "Special Agent Harper, this is Mike Jacobs, Ryan." I asked, "How about an exclusive?" "You crusty old doctor, Mike. All I could think of was you." "What's this exclusive you have for me?" asked Ryan. "First of all, extortion and murderous conspiracy." I informed him. "Yes? Who is the sufferer? Me? You? Are you certain about this?" Startled, Ryan inquired. "Indeed." I informed him I had a video of them. "Would you like me to email it to you?" "I'll give Sheriff Pratt a call after you send it to me. We've all been friends for ages. I assume you have my email address? It's on my list of contacts." "Regards, Ryan. Thank you for that," I said, formatting the email before I started to send the video clip. "I sent it. It is currently en route to you. I perceive it," Ryan answered. After a short while, I could hear my phone's video playing in muffled sound. "It's unbelievable that Samantha would harm you in that way." "Hold on. I'll make the sheriff's call." For a few minutes, I could hear him conversing with someone on a different phone. Then he came back. "All right. I'm sending someone to your residence right now, Sheriff Pratt." "What on earth is happening?" When I told Ryan what had happened over the past few days, he listened quietly. When I was done, I heard him whistle. "That's just cold-blooded, damn it!" he shouted. "I believed that," I informed him. "Right now, where are you? Are you secure? Should I send someone to cover for you?" With anxiety, Ryan inquired. I told him where I was and told him it would be okay. When I was done, he answered, "It appears that this is not a federal case, not yet anyhow. But feel free to call me if you need anything. Mike, are you hearing me? I understand. But once more, Ryan, thank you very much." After we hung up, I noticed that the three conspirators were still speaking on my laptop. "How about the former partner? Shall we also kill him?" asking Ellen. "No, not just yet. Why would two of Samantha's husbands be killed off so quickly? It would seem too fishy. I'll begin transferring the money to an offshore account tomorrow that we've been collecting from him and the others. After that's done, we'll assess Alvin's again." Thus, I reasoned, there are more casualties. This ought to be a fascinating discovery. "You seem to have experience with this," stated Alan. Allison gave a sly smile and answered. She joked, "Let's just say this isn't exactly my first rodeo." After about 30 minutes of watching them talk, I noticed the reflection of flashing lights outside. I grinned, knowing that there was going to be a twist to their little story. I heard a knock at the door a short while later. "Open the sheriff's department," a man's voice called out to me. Alan, Samantha, and Allison exchanged perplexed looks. "Better still, open the door," Samantha was informed by Allison. Sam did as he was told and opened the door. "True?" Samantha asked. "Samantha Jacobs?" the deputy inquired. Samantha remarked, "That's me. This is Deputy Jones, Deputy Smith. Would you kindly let us inside?" "Naturally," Deputy Samantha replied. The front room was entered by two deputies, one each for men and women. Alan Williams. "Allison Cartwright?" Smith inquired. The other two gave a nod of the head. "We are here to arrest the three of you. You've been taken into custody. Reverse the direction. Place your hands behind your back. In custody. For what purpose?" "How about Allison?" "According to the warrant. Conspiracy to commit murder and extortion," Smith said. Sam, Allison, and Alan looked at each other confused as Smith read their Miranda rights. "How?" "Shut up, Alan," Allison hissed. "Say nothing to no one. I understand. Your husband must have planted some bugs in the house," Alan told Samantha. "Did you know about it?" "No, I did not." Samantha said, "Shut up, you two," Allison commanded. "Say nothing when we get at the county jail. I will arrange for a representation. You have the right to be silent, so use it." The deputies completed their work and led the three conspirators out of my home. The footage terminated as the door was closed. I grabbed my phone and made my second call, this time to my lawyer, Alice Hawkins. "What has occurred, Mike? Why did you phone me after hours? I just wanted to let you know that Sam and her two collaborators have been detained," I responded. "What were you arrested for?" "A conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. I recorded their plot on video," I told Alice. "My God!" Alice exclaimed. "Can you get me a copy of the video? Already on it?" I said as I was about to email the video. Alice told me that this will undoubtedly help when she goes to see Judge Banks about the restraining order. Could that be Judge Kenneth Banks? I asked. One and the same. Why? Do you know him? I staged an intervention on his behalf around 10 years ago. I mentioned that intervention was the term used by the task force to aid targeted husbands before he became a judge. I added, couldn't that be considered a conflict of interest? Have you acted on his behalf since then? Alice inquired. No. I told her that it shouldn't be a problem. He may not even remember your name. Alice spoke. Maybe. I doubt he forgot the intervention, though. So don't worry. If he asks, I will tell him. Otherwise, we will say nothing. She told me. When will you go before him? I asked Alice. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock. I also have a motion to unfreeze your accounts and a demand that Samantha restore at least 35% of what she took. I'll be arguing those before Judge Banks at that time, hopefully with Samantha in custody. I will have wonderful news for you by this time tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. I told Alice. As do I. Mike, get some nice sleep tonight. I will talk to you tomorrow. We finished the call, and I made my third call of the evening, this time to Samantha's supervisor, Wilson Langley. He also happened to be Allison, and Alan's boss as well. Because I was in charge of getting Langley's business, I kept his personal mobile phone number in my contacts. I just had to call him on this number once since he joined ISC Langley. The elderly man responded after the first ring. Mr. Langley, this is Mike Jacobs, I asked. How are you doing this evening, sir? I was having a wonderful steak supper with a few buddies. He stated I could hear background noise, implying he was at the country club where Pop frequently ate. What can we do for you, Mr. Jacobs? Is there an issue with the security in my office building? None that I am aware of, Mr. Langley. However, there is an issue with 3 of your staff. What kind of issue? A lawful one. They have been arrested. I informed him that they were on their way to the county jail as we spoke. What? Langley hissed. I could tell he had his phone covered while speaking to his dinner guests. Then he returned his attention to me. Hold on. Let me go somewhere a little quieter. I heard him leave the table and then speak, which took barely a few moments. What is going on, Mr. Jacobs? As you are aware, my wife Samantha, your executive assistant, has filed divorce papers against me. I explained. Yes, I am aware of it. I have video of her, Alan Williams, and Allison Cartwright arranging my death. I also have evidence that they conspired to extort me. I informed him calmly, given our business relationship, I felt I owed you to let you know. Damn, he spat. Do you have proof of this? Yes, sir. I have video from my own home. I have reason to suspect that there is more to the story, and I aim to find out. Do you suspect me or my firm of any unlawful activity? Langley asked quietly. Mr. Langley, I have no first-hand evidence of it. Not at this time, but all 3. The perps in this case work for you, I informed him politely. Yes. At the present, this appears to be the case. However, everyone is entitled to a defense. Mr. Jacobs, they will have their day in court just like everyone else, and if your claims are genuine, I will terminate them. Is this sufficient? He asked. Yes, that will suffice, Mr. Langley, I replied. Good. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Mr. Jacobs. You are welcome. I ended the call. There was one more call. I considered the facts Terry had given me about Alan Williams before making my next decision. I dialed Alan and Rhonda Williams' New York phone number, expecting that Alan's wife would answer. I heard a woman's voice after 2 rings. Williams is home, she said. I would like to speak with Rhonda Williams, I said. This is she. Mrs. Williams responded. My name is Michael Jacobs. I have some horrible news about your husband, Alan. I heard her sigh before speaking. What is my spouse doing now? She inquired quietly. Your spouse has slept with my wife, I told her. You have undeniable proof of this. I have a video of them together. Damn him, Rhonda muttered. I warned him if it happened again. We were done. There is more. Mrs. Williams, I said. Please call me Rhonda, she added. Are you saying there is more? Yes, please call me Mike. Your husband has been arrested for conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. I have a hunch there will be additional charges. He and his collaborators are still being brought to the county jail. I said, my God, Rhonda muttered sadly. I really apologize for all of this. This is not your fault, Rhonda. He made his pick. Now he'll have to live with them. Yes, of course. You're correct. You say you have evidence. Yes, please send that to me, I told her. Rhonda gave me her personal email address, which I put to my contacts. I'll send you whatever I have as soon as we get off the phone again. I am sorry about this. As you stated, Mike, it is not your fault. Alan made the bed. Now he must lie in it. Thank you for informing me." Rhonda expressed sadness, and I felt awful for her and her children. I was aware of the media firestorm that Alan's actions would create. We finished the call, and I followed through on my commitment. I sent her all of the videos I had of Alan along with a small note of condolence. I had one more call to make, and I knew this would be the most difficult. I picked up my phone and dialed Pop. "Who responded after the second ring?" "Sam has been arrested," I replied quietly. "Yes, I understand. She called me from the county jail." Pop told me I could hear sadness in his voice. "She claims they are charging her with conspiracy to commit murder. Is this true?" "I am afraid it is, Pop," I replied. "I captured it on video. I cannot believe it. She would agree with something like that." Pop sighed. She did pop. "Anyway, the authorities now have control of the situation. Who else knows?" Pop asked her. "Boss, Wilson Langley. I told him only a few minutes ago. I also spoke with Alan Williams' wife in New York and my lawyer." Pop warned, "This is going to cause a media shit show." "Probably. I said shit like I usually do." Pop chuckled at that. "We'll get through this." Pop finally replied, "Thank you for informing me." "You are welcome," I replied. I felt horrible for the old man after seeing he wasn't to blame for what his daughter had done. So I better start going. Pop finally asked, "Let me know if you hear anything." "All right, Pop. Have a nice evening." "Give my best to Mom," I added before hanging up the phone, staring out the sliding glass doors that led to the balcony. The sun had set, and I noticed the city's glittering lights. I felt relieved after the events of the day and wanted to do something, anything. I felt like checking out and returning home, but I realized the restraining order was still in effect. I wouldn't be shocked if Allison's private investigators were waiting to see if I tried to sneak back after the conspirators were apprehended. Feeling the effects of cabin fever, I absolutely had to leave the room before I went crazy. So I went downstairs, purchased another cigar, and settled back by the pool to enjoy the cool night air, a drink, and a smoke. After a few hours, I returned to my room, slipped under the covers, and slept like a baby. I awoke later than usual the next morning, so I showered, shaved, and went about my customary routine before heading downstairs for breakfast. I had nothing planned for the day but to await Alice's news, so I took a leisurely tour around downtown before returning to my room. The knock came after I had barely been back a few moments, and I had not expected anyone to arrive. I grabbed my pistol and peered through the crowd. I observed two men wearing shoddy suits and insignia on their belts. "Who is it?" I inquired. "Police department. Mr. Jacobs. We would like to speak with you," I overheard a man reply. "Hold up your credentials so that I can view them. I demanded more than just your badges." They exchanged glances, shrugged their shoulders, and held out their official police credentials while reading their box tops. I discovered they were Detectives Johnson and Carraway. I met Johnson a few years ago at a fundraiser for the widows and orphans of officers slain in the line of duty. I'd never met Carraway, but I knew of his reputation. I chose to take a chance. They were the real stuff and holstered my weapon. "Just a second," I told them while cracking the door open. I surveyed the hall in both directions before inviting them inside. "Just to let you know, there is a loaded weapon in the room." I informed them that it has been holstered and rendered safe. Mr. Jacobs, one of the detectives, stated that we had expected this. "We know you're a former federal agent with a permission to carry. We only have a few inquiries about your wife and a couple of her colleagues." "All right, come in. Would you want some coffee?" "Sure. Black, please," Detective Johnson said. Carraway repeated his allegation, so I poured them each a cup of the boiling black brew. They took a cautious sip before curling their lips in disdain. "Damn. Do you call this trash coffee?" Carraway asked. I told him that was what it said on the package. "It tastes nice to me." "Yeah, you are a former Fed, right?" Johnson responded with a wry smirk. I asked them to have a seat before sitting on the bed. "So what can I do to help the city's finest?" I asked. "We're here to discuss the charges against your wife, Samantha Jacobs, her attorney, Allison Cartwright, and a colleague, Alan Williams." Johnson said, "I figured that," I said half-jokingly. "What would you like to know?" "Mrs. Jacobs has filed for divorce against you, claiming adultery. She claims that this is all a great misunderstanding." You claim you called in the report out of vengeance, Caraway stated while gazing at his notebook. I assume you haven't seen the video? I replied. Both of them glanced at me in amazement. Apparently, they had not watched the video. I take that as a no. Am I correct? We are unaware of any video, Johnson said. Now take a look at this chap. I would offer you some popcorn, but I don't have any right now. I was joking. I opened the footage on my laptop and showed it to the detectives. They were startled as the three conspirators casually talked murdering me if I didn't cooperate with their plan. They also noted Alan's desire to load something into my computer. Any idea what's on William's small thumb drive? Johnson asked. I told him it was most likely illegal spicy videos because Williams was detained with them. You may undoubtedly locate it in the county jail alongside the rest of his belongings. We'll have to go check it out, Caraway informed Johnson, who agreed instantaneously. Can you send us a copy of every video you have of them? Johnson asked me. Sure, I responded. I will give you a copy of everything I have, including a video of my talk with Cartwright at Luigi's. Thanks. That would be a huge help, Johnson remarked, handing me a thumb drive. I copied everything and handed the drive back. When is the arraignment? I asked. Tomorrow a.m., 10 a.m., Johnson stated. In fact, the district attorney asked us to extend an invitation to you as he may need to ask you a few questions. I will be there, I told him. Only one suggestion. You might wish to dig deeper into Cartwright. I believe this isn't her first time doing something like this. What made you say that? Caraway asked. I chatted with Samantha's first husband, Alvin Morrison. Cartwright played the same trick on him. If you want, I can provide you Morrison's contact information. Please do. According to Johnson, the two detectives exchanged looks as I wrote down Alvin's details. I also showed them Allison's images from both divorce trials. Caraway stated something interesting. Indeed, Johnson. Okay, Mr. Jacobs, we'll talk to this Morrison character, see what he says. I appreciate your cooperation, my pleasure. I told him one more thing, Mr. Jacobs. Consider this a word for the wise. I am aware of your reputation. You're no longer a federal agent. Pulling a weapon on a court officer is not the best idea, no matter how justified you feel. Leave it to us. We will take care of everything from here. Got it? I received it. Detective Johnson, I answered with a smile. We all shook hands and I led them to the door. It was lunchtime, so I ordered a sandwich from room service and ate while watching television. Later that afternoon, Alex called to inform me that Judge Banks had not only revoked the restraining order, but also lifted the block on my accounts and ordered Samantha to restore 30% of the money she had taken. He is also sending Cartwright to the bar and the state attorney's office for her unethical conduct. Alice commented, "You've been busy." I told her I was just warming up, and Cowboy Alice reacted with a small chuckle. "I intend to file your response and divorce papers tomorrow. Things are about to get out of hand." "So what happens now?" I asked. "I'll take care of collecting the monies from Samantha. Do you work on the checklist I gave you?" Alice spoke. "That should take you the remainder of the afternoon. Prepare to move back into your home tomorrow morning. Actually, I'd prefer to move back in today." I stated that I needed to change the locks and exorcise Samantha from my home. "I've been invited by the district attorney. Samantha's arraignment is tomorrow morning. Will you be there?" Alice said, "Not unless you need me there. If they release any of them on bail, I will require a restraining order," I told her. "According to what I've heard, the district attorney is going to recommend that they be detained until their trial." Alice spoke. "However, the judge's decision is unpredictable." "All right, I will be there just in case." "Thank you," I responded as I ended the phone to Alice and called Pop. "Hello, boy. How are things in your world?" the older man asked in his customary caustic tone. "I am doing better." "Pop, thank you for asking. Listen, the restraining order has been withdrawn and I intend to return to the house tonight. Do you think you can get some of your staff over there to fetch Samantha's items out?" "Yes, I can do that, son," he said. "Do you think she'll be out on bail soon?" "Not based on what I've heard, Pop, but you never know with certain judges." "Isn't that a fact?" Pop hissed. "What time do you need the truck there?" "I would say around 4:30. It shouldn't take long to put her trash into some rubbish bags." Pop chuckled at that. "Mike, do you realize you're a great class act?" he humorously inquired. "I learned from the best, Pop," I joked back. "Yes, you did, and don't forget that we both laughed about it. All right, I'll invite some people over around 4 o'clock, Please keep me updated on the arraignment. I will. I promised. We terminated the call, and I went to the bank to make the necessary modifications to my accounts. Then I went to the office to handle things with HR. While there, I checked in with my supervisor, Jack Iverson. "How's everything going?" he asked. "Progressing?" I said. I had the restraining order lifted and my bank account unfrozen. Samantha and her co-conspirators were detained last night. "Arrested?" Jack inquired. "Shocked?" "Yeah. Murderous conspiracy and extortion. I've heard that further charges may be forthcoming. The arraignment takes place tomorrow morning, and the district attorney. Does anyone want you to come?" "Yes. He may call on me. I do not know yet. I hope things work out." "Jack mentioned you were returning home today." "That is my plan." "Let me know how things go," Jack stated. "I will." I told him before I left. I returned to the motel, checked out, and drove home. Home? My castle. My escape from the shit show that is life. I pulled into the garage, closed the door, and proceeded to the kitchen. However, before walking inside, I drew my revolver. I didn't expect any unpleasant shocks, but I wasn't going to take chances. I carefully entered and turned off the security alarm. The place appeared gloomy and quiet. Too dark, too quiet. To be honest, the only sound in the house came from the big antique grandfather clock in the living room. I carefully checked the area to ensure that no one was waiting for me. Finally sure that the location was secure, I took my firearm and carefully moved my belongings upstairs, putting them away before taking a shower and changing into something more casual. At 4 p.m., I heard a large truck pull into my driveway and looked out the window. I observed 3 males climb out and approach the door. I let them in, handed them a package of enormous 30-gallon plastic trash bags, and showed them to Samantha's closet. One of the men began packing her things into bags, while another emptied her drawers and put her toiletries in another. I showed the third man around the place, pointing out furniture, pots, pans, dishes, CDs, and other stuff Samantha had brought from her condo. They used to be rather busy. After exorcising Samantha from the premises, I unlocked my office door and examined everything within. Everything appeared to be in good working order, so I turned on my entire home sound. Soon, the distinctive noises of vintage tile filled the house. Yes, I was home. Deal with it. I thought about pigs. I took out my phone and contacted a locksmith. SS suggested I acknowledge the late hour and offer to pay more for the man's services. He hesitantly agreed, saying he'd be right over. The last thing I wanted or needed was Samantha or her collaborators having access to my home if they were released on bond. The locksmith arrived a half hour later and began work a few hours later. The 3 men reported that they had finished. By then, the locksmith had changed all of the door's locks and was cheerfully on his way with a small bundle of cash. I went through the place with the 3 men and checked to make sure they had everything. "How about the pictures on the wall?" The man, whom I assumed was the lead, inquired, pointing to the several images of Samantha and me that adorned the premises. "Nah," I told him that I needed kindling to start my fireplace tonight. They all laughed about it. "Could you do me a favor, please?" "What's that, Mr. Jacobs?" "First and foremost, call me Mike. I was hoping you wouldn't mind taking the mattress off the bed in the master bedroom." "What do you want us to do with this?" the lead inquired. "Maybe throw it in the trash. Burn it. Whatever. I do not care. I do not want it. I assumed I'd sleep in the guest room and purchase a new mattress tomorrow. No way was I going to sleep on that mattress." Samantha's infidelity tarnished her reputation. "Sure, I understand, Mike," the lead stated. "Give me a help." He spoke to the other 2 males. "Thanks. I am grateful," I told him. They dragged the old mattress down the stairs and put it into the back of the vehicle. I thanked them for their efforts and handed them each $100 cash. What the hell? I thought they worked hard and deserved something more. We said our goodbyes, and I watched as they left with Samantha's belongings. Returning to the interior of the house, I took in the vacant spaces that had previously been occupied by Samantha's belongings. Well, I thought this as well, so it will pass. Tired and a little hungry. I ordered lasagna from Luigi's. The lady who took my order told me it would take around an hour for delivery. That was fine with me because I could take the time to unwind. I'm armed with a fresh cup of Keurig brewed coffee. I sat in my recliner and turned on the television to keep up with the news. A few minutes later, my phone rang and I realized it was a call from Ron Wiseman. Curious. I took the call. "Mike Jacobs, You're an old dog. How is it hanging? He asked. I just went back into the house, exorcised the witch, and kicked back. What have you got for me? You'll be relieved to know that despite being Pat Witherspoon's daughter, I discovered no links between your wife and the old miss. I did, however, discover linkages between the old organization and the lawyer. Allison Cartwright, I asked. My interest piqued. Yes, it was approximately 8 or 9 years ago. She went by another name. Ellen Griswold used to work in upstate New York. According to Witherspoon's notes, she disagreed with some of the group's more aggressive methods against cheaters. She was fine with punishing the males they targeted, but she reportedly thought some of the other actions were excessive. When the organization became politicized, she opted to leave. Mona Larson let her go. Strangely enough, she departed New York, changed her identity, and underwent some cosmetic surgery. But there is more. I discovered a document from Larson in which she considered a hit on Griswold. It was never carried out. Larson was removed from the contract only a few days after the memo was drafted. Very fascinating. I replied that I agreed. Ron claimed she may have left the organization, but she never lost up on the idea. However, adulterous husbands should be punished. She has worked with Hempstead for the past 8 years, managing divorce cases. So far, she has solely represented women. I'm looking into those cases, and it appears that nearly 90% of them include adultery. How many cases has she handled thus far? I asked. On average, she takes roughly 80 cases per year. Do the math. 80 instances every year for 8 years. That's 640 cases, Ron explained. Give or take. There is more. I discovered her identity was linked to over 500 bank accounts across the country. I'm still digging into all of that, but it appears she has access to approximately $25 million. Damn, I said. Yeah. And guess what? She set up the accounts for the ladies she represents. Samantha had such an account set up with her first husband. Have you provided this information to the district attorney? I asked. Yes, I just hung up the phone with him. You will be looking into that as well. What's that? That's correct. That was established up after your departure. Divorce Investigative Unit. Ray Ochoa, your old buddy, runs it. I anticipate that one of his representatives will pay you a visit within the next day or two. Thank you for the heads up. As I mentioned, this explains a lot. I couldn't help but wonder what the DEA may do with this knowledge. Is there something else? Not at this moment, Ron said. I'm still accumulating and organizing data. It may take some time to piece all of this together. She had 8 to set this up. However, there is something I don't grasp, I told Ron. Why didn't Larson administer the old poison capsule to her? Isn't that how she usually handled loose ends? Yes, it was, particularly at the conclusion. However, Griswold departed the organization before Larson started implementing it on a large basis. Thus, she was never implanted. At least that's what I gleaned from Witherspoon's notes. Do you believe Samantha was aware of Cartwright's history? I asked. I doubt that, Mike, but I'm quite sure that's what Cartwright is currently doing. She had to. You're probably correct. Anything else? Mike, I believe I'm only scratching the surface of Cartwright's work. I will know a lot more in the following 24 to 48 hours. Okay, thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. How are you and Amy doing, by the way? I asked. We are doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Her knife-throwing abilities improve with each new executive her company recruits. Ron made a joke. I laughed at that. I bet they are, I quipped. On the plus side, the number of sexual harassment accusations has almost completely decreased, Ron said, partly jokingly. We concluded the call and I returned to the television. My meal arrived quickly, and I ate my lasagna while watching an old John Wayne film. I followed up with a beer and a smoke. I suppose this is when guys in my circumstances wax philosophical about life, love, and the meaning of the universe, which according to the old movie is 42 or something similar. Yes, I am sad and severely upset, but I am not formed that way. I'm more of a just the facts, ma'am sort. So here are the facts. The simple conclusion is that Samantha cheated on me and then attempted to frame me as the bad guy, going so far as to hook up with an unethical lawyer. Then she sought to steal my property and most of my possessions using falsified evidence. To make matters worse, Mom agreed to Allison's plan to kill me if I didn't cooperate. On top of that, I discovered she had done this to another man. She was successful in that situation, and I assumed she expected to be successful with me. However, she made a serious mistake. You see, I don't like losing arguments, I suppose. I could have run a background check before we married. But when you're in love with a woman, you don't consider such things. And yes, I was once in love with Samantha. I trusted her, maybe a lot. However, this is no longer relevant. Samantha made a terrible mistake, and she now has to pay the consequences. Perhaps. After all, I believed she had inherited certain characteristics from her birth mother. I remember informing Allison that they had declared war. The first phase of my counteroffensive was completed. The restraining order was lifted. The freeze on my accounts has been lifted, and I'm back in my own home. Samantha has been exiled from my personal kingdom and is presently in jail. I meant to do whatever it took to keep her and her 2 co-conspirators there for as long as humanly feasible. Tomorrow a.m., I assumed that was phase 2 of the counteroffensive. I would attend her arraignment, and if the district attorney calls on me to answer questions, I'll gladly tell the court what I know. After finishing my cigar, I went upstairs, undressed, and slid under the bed sheets in my guest room. It felt lovely to be home and in my own bed, even if it's in a guest bedroom. But the place appeared empty without Samantha. I brushed that notion aside and determined to handle this as if it were an intervention, which meant putting aside my emotions. Tomorrow is another day, but from this point on, I'd be in charge, and I don't like losing arguments. The next morning, I got up, dressed, and grabbed a cup of coffee before going to court. I wanted to watch the 3 conspirators when they were carried into the courtroom. I was surprised to see Alice, my lawyer, enter the courtroom. "How are you doing, Mike?" she asked. "Better now that I'm back in my own home. That's great to hear. I wanted to be present to assist you in case Alice informed me." "I appreciate it," I replied with a smile. The double doors opened, and a line of orange-clad captives was led into the chamber. Allison, Samantha, and Alan were amongst them, and they didn't appear to be very happy. Tough crap. Samantha's hair was a mess, and she had circles under her eyes. Allison did not look any better. "All rise," the huge, uniformed bailiff commanded. We rose up as the Honorable Wilfred Stone entered the courtroom with his long black robe and folders under his arms. The judge nodded as he sat down, signaling the bailiff. "Take a seat." He placed an order. Judge Stone began at one end of the line, and I couldn't help but observe how harsh he was with the orange-clad individuals in front of him. Before meeting Samantha and her 3 buddies, he seemed to have been unfamiliar with the term bail. However, a well-dressed guy and woman I hadn't seen in 10 years entered the courtroom and approached the district attorney. I recognized the man from the United States, Attorney Ronald Sharp. I had interacted with him before while in the service. Julie Bascom was stationed at the task force's Denver office while I was active service. I had worked with her several times and was quite impressed. Furthermore, she was a beautiful brunette. I was impressed by how she maintained herself over time. While Ronald chatted with the district attorney, Julie approached me and I couldn't help but smile as she extended her hand. "Mike, it's nice to see you again," Julie responded with a smile. "I apologize." Special Agent Julie Bascom of the ATF told Alice while clutching her credentials. "I am with the Divorce Investigation Unit, DIO. Can we get out for a second?" "Sure." Alice spoke. We stood and exited the courtroom before Judge Stone could order us out. Ron was still talking to the DA, and I could tell, was not pleased. "What's happening?" I asked Julie. "There have been some developments," Julie stated. "Currently, the feds are handling the case against Allison Cartwright, Alan Williams, and your wife." "So this is a task force issue, right?" I asked. "Not exactly." Julie stated that the FBI and a few other agencies are investigating this issue, but we've got a dog in this hunt. I met with Ron Wiseman earlier, and he said there was nothing for the task force. "What happened?" I asked. Confused. "He discovered some alarming stuff after you two chatted. They handed them over to us, and we took it from there. You can probably figure out what occurred next. Anyway, it seems that Allison was running her own small version of the old Ms. and Samantha was assisting her." "Damn. What is Williams' part in this?" I asked. "He was along for the ride and had primarily arranged for the muscle to do the dirty work," as Julie put it. "So what happens now?" Alex asked. "Federal marshals are poised to apprehend all 3. They will be taken to Washington, D.C. Julie stated that the federal grand jury is investigating the cases against them. What exactly are they being charged with? I alleged racketeering, extortion, money laundering, and many conspiracy crimes, including plot to murder you, for starters. But the most serious charge is murder. Allison appears to have had some of her own people cooperate. Mark has been taken out. Samantha, as far as we can determine, was fully aware of the situation. Overall, the argument is quite complicated. What about William? I asked. The evidence we uncovered suggests he orchestrated the accidents that killed 2 guys. Julie added that it looks a 3rd man has died. Thanks to Williams, the U.S. attorney wants to execute all 3 of them. Do you suppose you might be able to visit Mrs. Jacobs before they are taken away? Alice inquired. I have divorce papers to offer her. I will see what I can do, Julie informed her before looking at me. I won't have to report back to Fort Apache for a few days. Mike, do you think we could get together someday? I got the hint. We had connected the few times we had met previously and experienced a mutual attraction. Nonetheless, the task force enforced rigorous rules against field agents. In fact, I feel I owe you dinner. I said, that's correct. Do you? Julie spoke with a small smile. How about tonight, Luigi? I hinted that they make amazing lasagna. And after all these years, do you remember how much I adore lasagna? She asked. Of course, I informed her. Julie grinned as she wrote something on the back of the business card she gave me. This is my personal phone number in my present location. How about 6:30 p.m. sound? I will be there, I told her while pocketing the card. Well, I guess we should go back inside. Alice spoke. We returned to the courtroom and saw the district attorney and the lawyer for the 3 conspirators speaking with the judge. We took our old seats, and Julie approached the 2 enormous federal marshals and engaged them in quiet conversation. I watched them look at each other, shrug their shoulders, and nod. I just spoke with the marshals. They told you may meet with Julie for a few minutes before they took her away. Julie whispered as she returned to us. I thanked her just as the discussion at the judge's bench ended and Judge Stone hammered his gavel before speaking. Detainees, Jacob, Cartwright, and Williams. You are hereby ordered to surrender to federal marshals who will transfer you to Washington, D.C., where you will be held until a federal grand jury concludes its inquiry, he said. He nodded to the bailiff, who released the 3 conspirators from the rest. The 2 marshals promptly handcuffed and escorted them away, nodding to Julie. Come on, Julie replied, standing up. Alice and I followed, meeting the marshals outside a small room behind the courtroom. 5 minutes. One of the marshals spoke. Allison and Alan glanced down at the floor, their hands shackled behind their backs. That's all we need, Alice stated. Thank you. We entered the room and saw Samantha sitting at a table with her hands shackled to a medal on the table. One of her colleagues from Hempstead sat beside her. Samantha looked up as we stepped in. Hello, Samantha, I said. I hope you are enjoying your short adventure. Screw you, Samantha replied quietly. I chuckled in answer. Not today, Samantha, never again. Actually, I said. What do you want? The man next to her asked. You must be her attorney. Alice spoke. Yes, John Ashcroft, Hempstead Legal Group. Okay, Mr. Ashcroft. I'm Alice Hawkins, Mr. Jacobs' counsel, and I'm here to serve divorce papers on your client. Accomplish what you came to accomplish, John instructed. Alice turned to Samantha and dropped the papers on the table. Samantha Jacobs. Have you been served? Alice spoke. Samantha agreed, saying, Whatever. John took up the papers and went through them. This is my client's answer to the ridiculous and illegal petition your client served on him, which was based on completely falsified evidence presented by an unethical attorney who is now facing many felony charges, including extortion and conspiracy. Commit murder. I have recommended that the court dismiss her petition. You should tell your customer to sign the paperwork right away. Everything is in compliance with the prenuptial agreement your client signed prior to marriage. There's also the issue of the monies your client stole from the joint account. Those cash must be refunded immediately. Otherwise, I'll have to charge your client with stealing. Here is a copy of the order requiring the return of those money, if you haven't seen it yet. She then dropped another paper on the table, which John picked up and read. Mrs. Jacobs has granted me power of attorney over her affairs, so I will handle this as quickly as feasible. Miss Hawkins, is there anything else? Yes, I interjected, gazing at Samantha. Why, Sam? What the hell happened? Samantha gazed up at me and seemed like a completely different person than the woman I married. She shrugged his shoulders as I could. She said, So what? So what? Is that all you have to say after all the years we spent together? Yeah, Samantha, I suppose so. I nodded as her words sank in. Then I realized that any affection I once had for her was vanished. Her attorney spoke forward. "Mr. Jacobs, I believe our business here is completed. My client has no more to say," he said. "Do you realize she might face the death penalty?" I asked him. "Yes, I am aware of it, Mr. Jacobs," John stated. Samantha smirked as if she didn't care. "Fine," I thought. "Neither do I." "Good luck," I murmured, motioning Alice to depart. We returned to the corridor where I encountered Allison, who was also smirking. "What's so funny?" I asked her. She snorted before speaking. "Just wait, Mike Jacobs. A whole fresh approach is on its way. And when the sisterhood gains control, there will be no room for dinosaurs like you." She sneered. I looked at Julie, who had picked up on Allison's statement. "Well, from where I stand, it appears that there will be no room for you either. As I already stated, I dislike losing arguments." When I shot back, the door to the room opened and Samantha returned with her attorney and another marshal. John handed him the divorce papers. "They are autographed," he said quietly. The marshal observed her signature, and I have notarized the papers, filed them, and requested a duplicate. "If you would, please consider it completed," Alice said as she reviewed the documentation. "Thank you." She placed the box in her case, and we went our separate ways. Alice completed the paperwork and returned to the courthouse to meet Ron, but not before reminding me of our dinner arrangement. I left the courts and went outside, pausing to get a burger after my lunch. I went to a mattress store and ordered a new mattress that could be modified once I arrived home. I called Pop to tell him what had happened. "What will happen to her?" my father-in-law requested. I could hear pain and disappointment in his voice regardless of what Samantha had done. I liked and respected the older gentleman. He deserved to know the entire truth, but I was worried it might be too much for him to handle. "It is all right, I can handle it. Whatever it is, the U.S. attorney seeks the death penalty." I stated I heard Pop sniffle as he struggled to get control of his emotions. "Do you believe they will receive it?" Pop asked, his voice shaking. "I do not know. I have not seen the evidence. However, based on what I've heard, none of them appear to be in good standing." "She is my only child, you know." Pop replied quietly. "I understand. Does she have a decent lawyer?" "Those feds can tear someone apart. I believe her firm has it covered," I told him. "Tell me something. Honestly." "Do you want this for her?" Pop asked. "Honestly, I just want her out of my life, and I want her to pay for any crimes she committed, but I do not want her to die." "Thank you for that, son," Pop said. "What are you planning to do?" "I make plans. Move along, Pop. I'll probably be called to testify. Of course, I will tell the truth. Let the chips fall where they may. Samantha, based on my observations, has a lot of questions to answer. That will be up to the jury, I understand." Pop mentioned that we talked for a while. I'm hanging up the phone. To be honest, this is a somewhat happier tone. I want my ex-wife to live like I have. Plans for her death would provide her escape. After that, I contacted Luigi's and made a reservation for 2 for that night. I didn't know what to anticipate on my date with Julie. We had met years ago while I was a federal agent. However, nothing tangible resulted from it because we were bound by task force regulations. I had thought what she'd be like in bed several times. When I arrived to Julie's hotel, I called to let her know I was there and on my way to her room. I was surprised when she opened the door. Julie wore her long, flowing hair over her bare shoulders. She wore a short black dress that highlighted her curves wonderfully. This was the first time I had seen her in something other than a black pantsuit, and I was astounded by her attractiveness. "Mike, take out your tongue," Julie inquired with a wicked smirk. "You are absolutely lovely," I stammered, feeling like an eager teenage lad on his first date. "Thank you," Julie responded. "And I must tell that you clean up rather good." I offered her my right arm since I required the left for my cane. She agreed, and we headed to my car. Being the gentleman that I am, I even held the car door open for her. "Mike, this is a pretty lovely automobile," Julie said when I entered. "Thank you. The advantages of becoming an executive. Wait till you can hear the sound system." "Do you still enjoy Jethro Tull?" Julie asked. I said, "You have to ask such a silly question. Listen to this." I turned on the system and heard sounds as thick as a wall. Yes, it's one of my all-time favorites. The point is, I knew Julie loved tall people. At least she did the last time I saw her. So where the heck was Biggles when you needed him? Last Saturday. And where were all the athletes who have always helped you get through? They are all resting in Cornwall. writing their memoirs for a paperback edition of the Boy Scout Manual. "Mike, you certainly know the way to my heart," Julie exclaimed. "That is one of my favorites." "There is plenty more where it came from," I told her as I pulled out of the parking lot. We arrived at Luigi's, and I eagerly escorted Julie through the door. "Table for 2 Jacobs," I informed the girl at the front desk. "Please go this way," she replied with a smile after confirming my reservation. We followed the girl to our table, and I was relieved to see that it wasn't the same one where I had recently been ambushed by Samantha's lawyer. As Julie accompanied me, I could see the males in the restaurant exchange jealous looks. Our arms linked together. I felt Julie was the cutest girl in the room. Tonight she is with me. I held the chair for Julie before taking my seat and resting my cane against the wall directly beside me. A waitress approached with 2 glasses of water and took our orders. "Even with your cane, you appear to be able to get around well." Julie spoke once the waitress had left. "Thank you. I've had plenty of experience throughout the years," I told her. "Is it still bothering you? I know they worked a lot on that leg. Even when it's terribly chilly outdoors or it's raining, I can't put all my weight on one knee." I appreciated Julie's concern, but I wanted to change the topic. "How have you been? You were in Denver when I last saw you." "Yes, I was. I got transferred to the Seattle office. I stayed there for almost 3 years before moving to Miami. That was a crazy assignment. Then I was selected for the DIA. And that is where I've stayed ever since." Julie asked, "How do you like working for Ray?" I'd known Ray Ochoa for a long time and had always thought highly of him. "I enjoy working with Ray," Julie exclaimed. "I especially admire that he isn't a micromanager. I worked with someone like that once, and it truly irritated me." I chuckled at that. "I get what you mean. So, what exactly is going on with this deal? I don't recall anything like that happening while I was in the service." Julie explained about the divorce investigation unit. It's a very fresh setup following the event with Pierce. Basically, we look at the more serious claims of spousal abuse and infidelity to determine whether there is any evidence of May's involvement as a holdover or copycat. "Must keep you rather busy," I observed. "Unfortunately, it does." Julie lamented that she was far busier than she would want to be. "I'm just interested how many of your situations get positive results," Julie inquired, completing my thought. "Not many. On average, around 2%. That is still much more than we would like to see. I must agree that your case was pretty interesting." "How?" "None of the normal markers were present. However, your soon-to-be ex-wife is the offspring of possibly the greatest field operative who ever worked for Miss, and your wife's attorney is a former member of the group. It drew our attention fast. Of course, I can't say much more because it has been turned over to a federal grand jury. But I can tell you that Wiseman and his study team unearthed a lot. And it looks bad for all 3 of them. Your man Torres also discovered a couple things that were quite helpful. I am delighted he could help." "I assume his findings have already been turned over to the proper authorities?" "Yes, they have, and he has been told not to share everything he has learned. National security and all that, so please don't be too harsh on him. I will not. Terry is a good guy. I trust him. But thank you for letting me know. You are welcome," Julie stated. "So what is this?" "Talk about a new approach and a sisterhood," I inquired, recalling our talk with Allison and Samantha earlier. "Did you catch that?" Julie responded admirably. As the old mass corporate structure was demolished, the organization changed, expanded globally, and became even more radical and less concerned with matters like murder. A county commissioner from Texas was slain, not long ago as part of an experiment. Damn. I shuddered. We're not sure if those are the group's new names or just generic titles they employ. It could be both, for all we know. The main line is that things are much more dangerous now than they were when you were in the army. You need to be very cautious. "Careful is my second name," I said, leading her to chuckle. Just then, our orders arrived. We both chose Luigi Special Lasagna, one of my favorites, dripping in 3 different types of cheese and stuffed to the brim with beef and mushrooms. We both plunged in, using our breadsticks to suck up the remaining sauce. Julie shouted, "This is absolutely delicious." "This is one of my favorites. I can make myself sick with this stuff." "I can see why," Julie said. "When we're done here, there's a wonderful small dance club right next door. Would you like to go have something to drink and maybe dance off a few calories?" I asked. "Why Mike Jacobs, if I didn't know better?" Julie laughed and replied, I think you're trying to seduce me." "What, me?" I reacted, pretending outrage. "Yes, you are. But for the record, I'd love to have a drink and a few dances with you. That is, assuming you can keep up with me." "Well, I admit that I'm limited to slow dances these days," I teased. Julie's smile widened, and I noticed her dimples. God, I could get lost in those dimples. "How do you deal with?" "I learned long ago to improvise, adapt, and conquer," I told her. "In that case, I'd love to have a couple of wonderful slow dances with you, Mike," Julie stated in a sexy tone that was full with promise. Our waitress arrived with the check, so I handed her my credit card, and she returned a few minutes later to finish up. After I finished the bill, we went out and strolled to the dance club, which was not that crowded. Fortunately, Julie turned heads. She went in, and I could practically hear the men murmuring as they assessed my date. Naturally, no one had any idea what Julie could do to them if they got out of line. We took a seat and ordered drinks when the band began playing a slow dancing song. I invited Julie to dance, and she gladly agreed. We made our way to the dance floor, where I placed my right arm around her and held my cane in my left. Julie merged her body with mine as we moved around the dance floor. Slow and steady was the key. "Mike, you have incredible agility," Julie muttered as I hugged her close. I inhaled the aroma of her hair as she rested her head on my shoulder. "Where there is a will, there is a means," I responded with a whisper. We danced through 2 slow songs before returning to our table. "That was nice." Julie spoke quietly as I sat down. "I never thought of you as a dancer before. Things have changed slightly throughout the years. Personally, I found it quite beneficial during my therapy. Did you and Samantha visit here frequently? I tried to make it a weekly affair, but to be honest, the last few months were difficult. She'd been frigid and standoffish for a long. At the time, I assumed it was simply stress from work. I now know better." I answered, "Enough of my troubles." "How have you met Mr. Wright yet?" "Not really." Julie chuckled. "I do not know. Perhaps it is the nature of our jobs that causes this. We see a lot of hurt and pain. Not exactly the ideal setting for a relationship. I get what you mean." Julie sighed as I admitted that I had met someone once, but he turned out to be a jerk, a player. I dropped him and didn't look back. "I am sad to hear that," I told her. "Do not be," Julie scoffed. "I'm just glad I found out before it became too late." "Yeah. So what are your plans now?" "I plan to stay with the task force. I plan to retire in a few years. I considered getting a condo on the beach somewhere and sharing it with a cat or something." "That's a hell of a remark, right?" "I think so," Julie replied. I could see the sadness on her face, so I changed the subject, hoping to cheer her up a little. "What say we blast this joint? Perhaps bring some music or something? Do you still have that assortment of tools?" Julie asked. "Yes, I do," I told her. "I've even added to it since we last saw each other, so what are you waiting for? Please take me to your parlor." Julie drawled, "Kind sir," as she put her arms around my shoulders. "Where did that come from?" I asked. Surprised? "This is from a book I read online," Julie answered. "Are we going or what?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, grasping my cane. After paying our bill, we left the club and went to my house. When we arrived, I gave Julie a nickel tour of the facility, which concluded in my office, where I kept my cache of tall vinyl. I don't care what people say. Nothing beats the music from those vintage LPs. I let Julie choose which CD she wanted to hear, and was shocked when she chose a Passion Play. I turned on my stereo and placed the CD on the turntable. We walked to the front room as the music filled the home. After pouring a few glasses of wine, we relaxed on the couch and listened to the music. After the first side was finished, I switched the album around to play side 2. Julie was amused by the story about the hare who lost his spectacles and burst out laughing when I returned to the front room. Julie was still giggling as the narrative ended, and after all, she did have a spare. A pair? A pair? What's so funny? I inquired as the music continued. I'm not sure why, but the story makes me laugh every time I hear it. Julie stated she put down her wine glass and turned to me, unbuttoning my shirt. She stroked her hand over my chest and stared deeply into my eyes. Mike, did you ever wonder why she never finished her sentences? That's because our lips came contact in the hottest kiss I'd ever had. Even with Samantha, our tongues fought for what seemed like eternity. She ended the kiss and glanced at me. Yes, many times, I whispered. Julie climbed over me and straddled my legs, pulling her short dress up to her waistline. She put her arms around my neck and kissed me again. She broke the kiss and murmured into my ear. "Make love with me, Mike," she hissed. "Please." She didn't need to coax me anymore. The next thing I knew, clothes were flying off of both of us, and it was wild. We lay there on the couch, exhausted for a few moments. We glanced at each other's faces as the intensity of our relationship dissipated. I think the song is almost finished. Julie finally spoke. I listened and realized she was correct. There was a rush along Fulham Road to the ever-popular show, I believe. "You're right," I said. "I suppose that makes this our song." Julie grinned back. "Yes, our song." She replied with a smile. "Why don't you put on the album, okay?" I spoke as she kissed my face. She climbed from my lap, and I was able to stand with the help of my cane. I exchanged a passion play for live bursting out and returned to the front room, where I fell on the couch. Julie's gaze was pulled to the scar on my thigh. "You okay?" I asked. "I'm doing better now," she remarked. "It is just, I haven't seen your scar before. That's worse than I expected. It's much better now." I said, "If this upsets you, I can put my trousers back on." "No, don't," Julie pleaded. "It is a part of you. I am not concerned by it. I have a few scars of my own, you know." Julie appeared to be in wonderful condition, but looking closely, I noticed a few crimson streaks on her torso. It happened in Seattle, a knife battle. You should see the other individual. Is it bothering you? Not at all. I told her you are great just the way you are. I paused for a second before asking my next inquiry. Would you like to spend the night? Her smile illuminated the room. I assumed you would never ask. Julie spoke as she placed her arms around me. We went upstairs and left our clothing in the front room. I hope you do not mind if we use the guest bedroom. I'm getting a new mattress for the master bedroom. This explains the box springs, Julie stated. I assumed you had some odd fetish or something. We both laughed about that. We climbed into the guest bed and cuddled for a while. I truly liked our time together. You don't know how long I've wanted to do it with you. Really? I'm happy you loved it. Personally, I enjoyed it. To tell you the truth, I did not want it to end. Julie smiled before kissing me. Then we fell asleep, each other's arms. I awoke the next day to the smell of bacon. After doing my business in the master bathroom, I changed into some casual clothes. I went downstairs to discover Julie in the kitchen, wearing only one of my long-sleeved shirts. Good morning, sleepyhead. She smiled and brought me a cup of coffee. Breakfast is almost completed. You are going to spoil. Do you know that? I asked before kissing her. Isn't this the idea? She replied. I smiled at that. She reappeared, bringing 2 dishes of eggs, bacon, and bread. She handed me one and placed the other in front of her. This is fantastic. I spoke after taking a bite of the eggs. Thank you, Julie replied. It is difficult to screw up an egg, however. Maybe, I replied. Perhaps you cooked it when you didn't have to. Thank you for last night, Julie remarked with a sad expression. I really needed that. I believe we both did. I told her it was the nicest night I'd had in a very long time. I wanted it never ended. But I understand you have a job to complete. I understand. Yes, I have work. I need to finish. But Fort Apache isn't too far away. We always have weekends. Besides, I will be retiring in a few years. This will give us some time to get to know each other better. What are your thoughts? I'd enjoy that. I told her I had a strong connection with Samantha last night and hadn't felt her in a long time. And I want to make sure it wasn't just 2 ships sailing through the night. I agree, Julie said. I want you to know that I don't usually spend the night. So, as we did last night, I've been attracted to you for a long time and you have also attracted me. Is there a but? I am hearing your voice. Mike, I do not want to be a rebound relationship for you. You've just begun your divorce. You have a long path ahead of you, trust me. I've witnessed what divorce does to people. It isn't pretty, but I will be there for you whenever you need me. Thank you for that, I told her, attempting to maintain a neutral tone. Why don't we take things slow and easy for a while? I can come out and spend the weekends with you if you wish. If you need to talk, please phone me at any time. There's no reason to haste. And, before you ask, I do not have a boyfriend someplace else. Julie's words made sense, and I reflected for a few moments before responding. All right, I replied. You are welcome here at any moment. Of course, I want to see you on weekends. You realize I might have to work some weekends, right? Yes, I'm completely aware of this. Have you been there and done that, remember? Julie chuckled at this. I will never forget, she remarked, but I do need to get dressed. I have a meeting with the U.S. Attorney this afternoon, and I doubt he'd enjoy me turning up like this, Julie added, holding open her top. I smiled at that. I do not know. I rather enjoy seeing you dressed that manner, especially at my table. I giggled, making Julie grin. You are really naughty, Julie chided. Yes, I am, I responded with a joke. We kissed and hugged briefly before Julie got her clothing from the living room and went upstairs. I smiled as I saw her cute, tiny, bare hips swing under my shirt before clearing the table and doing the dishes. Julie returned downstairs after a half hour, dressed and ready to go back to her hotel, so I took my keys and she followed me to the car. When we arrived at the motel, she leant over and gave me another blazing, hot kiss, full of promise. What would you want for dinner tonight? I asked. Surprise me, Julie remarked, smiling. I need to fly back to Fort Apache tomorrow morning. Do you think you can tolerate having me around for another night? I believe I can handle it. I will just have to tell my other girlfriends. I have a date, though, I quipped. Yes, right, she said, slapping my arm. I'll call after I'm finished. All right. That sounds wonderful. By the way, you might as well get this, I remarked, handing Julie the key to the house. I also took out a card containing the security code for the alarm. This is the code for the security alarm. When you open the door, you have just under a minute to enter the code. Thank you for that, Julie replied, taking the card. She gave me one more kiss that was full of promise. Then he got out of the car and closed the door. I waited until Julie was inside the motel, then left and drove to the office. What are we working on casually today? And nobody told me, Jack inquired as I came into the executive office suite. I laughed as I entered his office. You certainly seem to be in a better mood today. Is everything going well? Yes, it is, I responded, in more ways than one. By the way, did you see Terry? I need to speak to him. I haven't seen him, but I'm sure he is somewhere around here, Jack stated. I will call him then. Not a big deal. How did the arraignment go? Better than I'd hoped. Samantha and her co-conspirators are currently in federal detention and on their way to Washington. They appear to be under investigation by a federal grand jury. Interesting, Jack stated. So, are you back for good? I suppose I'll be fine to go from here. I do have a date tonight, however. A date? You certainly do. Quick, Mike. Who is she? Her name is Julie Bascom. We were in the service together. She plans to retire in a few years, so you enjoy dates then. Jack joked, Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I laughed at that. Yes, right. I mentioned this before going to my office. When I arrived, I called Terry. Hello, boss. I was just getting set to come see you. Is everything all right? I asked. Yeah, I just wanted to offer you my final report. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be there in around 5 minutes. Terry said this before hanging up the phone, true to his word. Terry entered my office 4 minutes later carrying a very hefty folder which he gave to me. Well, you've been busy, I informed him as I hefted the thick folder. I assume you sent a copy of this to the feds and Miss Hawkins? Yes. Terry reported that Special Bascom appeared glad to receive it. You are already familiar with much of the information in that report. I received a whole file on William's character and Morrison's divorce from Samantha. It was not pretty. Did you send a copy to William's wife in New York? I asked. Not yet, but I will if you wish. Please do. I gave instructions. Terry said it was done. Anything about the photos? Yeah. I chatted with my audio-video man. He admits that they appear to be printouts of photoshopped digital photos. However, without viewing the original digital data, it is difficult to say much more. This makes logical, I reasoned. Anyway, everything is there. Everything I could find in just a few days. I hope it helps. Yes, Terry, it does. I said, Nice work, thanks. I have a significant debt to you. My pleasure, boss. Terry replied with a smile. Well, I need to get back to it. Let me know if there is anything more you require. We will do. Terry, I told him. We shook hands and I watched him leave the office. I spent the next few hours going through the package Terry had put together, wondering if I had ever truly known Samantha. I eventually closed the folder and tossed it on my desk. I assumed it was all academic because it was up to the grand jury. I finished the rest of my work and realized it was lunchtime, so I went out to have a sandwich while I was there. I prepared the evening dinner I'd have with Julie and wanted to do something special for her. I pondered taking her to the new restaurant, but I changed my mind and decided to grill a steak for her instead. After lunch, I went back to the office and checked in with Jack. "If you don't mind, Jack, I would like to leave a little early. I need to stop at the store on my way home," I explained. "Yeah, sure, Mike," Jack stated. "We have everything under control here." "Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it." With a wave, I departed for the store, where I picked up a couple of hefty steaks, potatoes, and all of the fixings. I also grabbed a bottle of wine before heading home. As I was prepping the meat, my phone buzzed and I recognized Julie, so I took the call. "Hey, G-Man," she remarked when I responded. It had been a long time since I heard it, and I couldn't help but smile. "Hey, you," I replied. "How has your day gone so far?" Julie stated something interesting. "I called to see what you had planned for dinner. I'm in the midst of preparing a few steaks. I plan to grill some steaks and serve them with some baked potatoes and green beans. How does that sound?" "Meat?" "Yes," Julie exclaimed. "I enjoy a home-grilled steak." I jokingly said, "Your wish is my command. So, is there any news?" "Yeah, I will tell you when I meet you tonight." "I'm looking forward to that. I only need to stop at the motel and change, pack and check out. That is assuming you still want me to stay the night," Julie whispered. "Of course," I replied. "All good then. I'll see you in a bit." We said our goodbyes and concluded the call. I returned to my preparations. I smiled when the lyrics of a favorite song played on the house stereo. The leaded window opened, but you shift the dancing candle flame and the first moths of June. Suicidal thoughts came to mind. I had just finished all of my preparations when the doorbell rang. I answered. I spotted Julie carrying a closed bag and an overnight bag, so I invited her in. "You know, there's no need to ring the doorbell." "I appreciate that, Mike," Julie replied as she entered. "I can smell the barbecue already. I haven't put any meat on yet. I wanted to wait until you got here. How do you like yours, by the way?" "Rare. I mean, it's so unusual that it almost moves a woman after my own heart," I quipped. "Let me take this stuff upstairs and I'll be right out," Julie stated. "Do you need help with that?" I received it, but thank you for offering anyhow. Julie answered as she climbed the stairs. I went outside, grilled the food, and opened the wine. Julie got back down, wrapped her arm around my waist, and kissed me on the cheek. That tiny act filled me with more affection than Samantha had given me in a long time. "Is the food ready?" I grabbed a few dishes and filled them with steaks and potatoes. We went into the kitchen, spooned some green beans, and topped the potatoes with butter and sour cream. Julie responded, "This smells delicious, Mike." "I hope you enjoyed it," I told her. "It's been a long since I grilled anything. I'm sure I will enjoy it. It's been a long time since a man cooked for me. Next time, I'll take over the kitchen." "Okay, you are on," I replied. I saw her eat her first bite of steak. She closed her eyes and sighed as she ate her meal. "This is wonderful, Mike. Perfect. Thank you for stating so." We ate our dinner and made small talk thereafter. Julie insisted on scrubbing the dishes, so I let her. We then retired to the front room for a drink of wine. "So did anything exciting happen today?" I inquired once we had settled down on the couch. "Yes, we reviewed the evidence from Cartwright's house." She noticed the look on my face. I expected them to execute the search warrant, but I had no idea it had already been done. I probably should have informed you. The FBI raided her home the day after her arrest. I found a lot. For begin, they discovered the digital files. Cartwright created the photographs. Believe it or not, she has used the same basic images against hundreds of guys over the years. "Damn," I said. "You can say it again." "We also have information on each of the accounts. Cartwright has access to the monies which have all been temporarily blocked. We're talking millions more than we first imagined. So she has been operating this fraud for years?" I said yes. I should mention that Samantha assisted me. And while William's thumb drive was full of unlawful spacey flicks, which we also discovered on Cartwright's computer, it appears that she utilized these, along with the fabricated images, as leverage against her targets. We also discovered evidence linking Cartwright and Williams to at least 3 killings, on top of their conspiracy against you. It appears that they will spend a significant amount of time in prison. I added, "Well, if Ryan has his way, all 3 of them will receive the needle." Julie stated, "We just have to wait and see what the grand jury says. The detectives could spend months sorting through all of information. Maybe in a few years, based on what I've seen." "What about all the men Cartwright screwed over?" I asked. Julie remarked it was a completely different can of worms. I anticipate that each divorce Cartwright worked on will be reviewed by a judge and that numerous lawsuits will be brought. Alice, your attorney, is ecstatic about it. I chuckled at that. I'm certain she is. In any case, it is going to be a carnage. Julie said that legally she would be extremely astonished if Hempstead survived the aftermath. So you've got your work cut out for the next few years, I take it? Julie nodded her head. Yeah, Ray put me on track. So I will be either here or at Fort Apache. I'll probably have to go to Washington from time to time. At least you won't have to worry about where to stay while you're here, I told her. Julie grinned as she placed her arms around my neck. No, I do not. I simply hope you don't grow tired of having me in your bed. I'd never grow bored of that, I told her. We took another drink of wine before falling into each other's arms for our second night of lovemaking. My divorce went smoothly as I expected. Alice launched a number more claims, and by the end more than 600 men, including Alvin, had received a sizable payout. Alice reduced her proportion by more than half. Even so, she went away with enough money for retirement. Hempstead nearly failed. Despite the poor press and judicial reviews, they managed to survive. Julie projected that the FBI inquiry would take 26 months to conclude. Following the inquiry, a federal grand jury indicted Samantha, Allison, and Alan on a variety of counts, including premeditated first-degree murder. Ron, the United States attorney in charge of the case, sought the death penalty for all three. Julie spent 26 months commuting between Fort Apache and Washington, D.C., and my residence. It was nice to have her with me, and our feelings for each other grew to a point. I asked her to marry me a few days before Samantha's sentencing hearing. I assumed you would never ask, Julie said as I slipped the engagement ring onto her finger. We celebrated with a night of unrestrained passion. Pop was glad for us, even more when Julie chose him to be her special walk-down-the-aisle buddy. Samantha got a chance to turn her back on her bad friend group in swap for saying yes to doing wrong and living her days behind bars. She took the deal smart, making Pop sigh in relief after all was set. She told all. Because of her words, Allison and Alan, who lost everything to his ex in a split, were found guilty on all counts and got the toughest fate. I saw Samantha 2 times after she was sent off to Washington. The first was at the trial when they called me up to speak the truth. She sat there looking low as I spoke under oath. The next was at the hearing where they decide what comes next. Pop and Julie came with me. Samantha looked rough. Her hair, once lush, was now a mess and gray showed through. She seemed to have aged decades with lines all over her face. Her look was full of hate when they told her what she faced. "Happy now," she hissed. "Honestly, I've never felt better," I replied, eyeing Julie. I saw a tear in Samantha's eye. Then she looked away. My eyes moved to Allison, who looked just as beat and done. "I told you I don't like losing," I said. Allison lowered her gaze to the table and gave a small smile. I walked away, ready to start fresh. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.